After securing the resizing ray from the evil Lobster King, Kevin returned home to Chicago to help Lily finalize preparations for the upcoming World's Fair. The commercial airliner landed on the tarmac, and Kevin stepped out and breathed that sweet Chicago air. It's good to be home, Kevin thought to himself as he took in the familiar skyline. Kevin arrived back at the mayor's mansion just in time to find Lily immersed in the final preparations for the World's Fair. Lily's eyes lit up as she saw Kevin walk through the front door. She rushed over to him, embracing him tightly as she showered him with kisses. "Kevin, my love, you're back," Lily exclaimed, her face radiating joy. "And you brought the resizing ray." "I thought it could be a nice addition to the technology exhibits at the fair," Kevin replied. "It's perfect," Lily fawned. "Thank you so much, Kevin, for everything." Kevin gently squeezed his very pregnant wife, feeling a surge of pride. "Anything for you, Lily," he said softly, his heart swelling with love for her. "Can I take you out to dinner?" Kevin asked. "It'd be nice to spend some one-on-one time together." Lily sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "I'd love to, but I can't. Not tonight. I'm holding a big press conference on the grounds of the World's Fair. We're launching the cell phone app for the fair tonight, and we're going to have press on hand to build excitement among people in the city. And hopefully around the world. Can I get a rain check?" Kevin understood. "Of course. I'll come with you to your big press conference," Kevin offered. "If the questions get too tough, I'll use my level 9 fighting ability to start cracking skulls." Kevin and Lily shared a laugh. "Perfect. Thank you. That should be a good story for the papers," Lily joked. "But truly thank you for offering to come. I need all the support I can get." Excitement crackled in the air as Lily, her campaign manager Ruby Kincaid, and event planner extraordinaire Alma Calponi made their way through the bustling crowds to the press conference being held inside the grounds for the upcoming World's Fair. The venue was alive with anticipation, and the sound of cameras clicking could be heard, coming from every direction as reporters jostled for the best vantage points. Lily was excited about this event, which was a true beacon of the fair's inevitable opening, but she didn't know that Alma was secretly the head of the Chicago mob with evil plans for Lily and the World's Fair. The only question was when Alma would finally decide to show her true colors and strike. Kevin marveled at the elaborate setup, with banners and streamers fluttering in the breeze and colorful displays showcasing the innovative exhibits that would soon be unveiled to the world. As Kevin and Lily took their seats among the throng of journalists and dignitaries, Kevin squeezed Lily's hand reassuringly. Lily smiled. "Can you believe we're finally here, Kevin?" she whispered, her voice filled with awe. Kevin smiled back at her, feeling a surge of gratitude for the woman by his side. "It's incredible," he replied, his heart swelling with pride. "And it's all thanks to you, Mayor Lily." Before long, the press conference began, with Lily, the mayor of Chicago, taking the stage to address the gathered crowd. Lily spoke eloquently about the significance of the World's Fair and the groundbreaking exhibits that would be showcased for the first time. "And now," Lily announced, "in preparation for the fair, we are launching the official World's Fair cell phone app." Lily raised her phone to show the press. "With this app, you'll be able to easily navigate from one exhibit to the next, enjoying every venue, ride, and food station with ease. We also have classic county fair options as well. Cotton candy, clowns, a petting zoo. There's going to be something for everyone." The press jotted down all the information, generally impressed. Lily finished. "Any questions?" One member of the press raised her hand. "My app isn't working," the reporter noted. "Is it just me, or are other people having the same problem?" "Really?" Lily replied with concern. "Mine isn't working either," another reporter noted. "The directions are all wrong and the dates keep changing." "What?" Lily frowned, unsure of what was happening. As the confusion over the malfunctioning World's Fair app spread, reporters swarmed around Lily, bombarding her with questions and snapping photos of the chaos unfolding. Lily remained composed as she tried to address the reporter's inquiries. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's not let a technical glitch overshadow the incredible innovations that await everyone at this year's World's Fair, she began, her voice projecting authority and reassurance. While we work to resolve this issue with the app, I'd like to extend an invitation to all of you for private tours of the events and VIP tickets to the fair. Her words seemed to placate some of the reporters who nodded in approval, but others remained skeptical, pressing Lily for answers about when the app would be fixed and how the confusion would be addressed. Lily, with Kevin's support, remained poised as she fielded the questions, promising to provide updates as soon as they became available, and reassuring the reporters that every effort was being made to rectify the situation. But just as things started to calm down, the app began malfunctioning to an even greater degree. Some reporters were directed to unexpected locations like the massage parlor near the wharf instead of the main World Fair's pavilion. Lily was suddenly bombarded with more questions as the press's skepticism grew. Is the World's Fair going to be a disaster? One reporter shouted above the clamor, echoing the concerns of many. How much money has gone into this faulty app? Another questioned. Is this all Kevin's fault? Dorothy, Kevin's mother-in-law, bellowed out as she stood among the reporters. Mother, not now, Lily commanded. Kevin could sense the pressure mounting. Stepping forward, he addressed the reporters with a calm and reassuring tone. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I understand your concerns, but let me assure you that despite these technical difficulties, the World's Fair will be a resounding success. Lily has done an amazing job, and I'm so excited for all of you to see what she's got in store for everyone. Kevin's words seemed to offer some reassurance to the reporters, who nodded thoughtfully, though the skepticism still lingered in the air. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Lily and Kevin conferred with their team, brainstorming strategies to mitigate the impact of the app malfunction and salvage the reputation of the World's Fair. What is going on with this app? Lily worried. This was supposed to be state-of-the-art. This can't get any worse. Just then, the gates to every animal attraction at the fair opened at once. Ponies, horses, tigers, bears, monkeys, and animals from all over the world had been brought in as attractions for the World's Fair, and now all their doors were wide open. Before anyone could react, the press was suddenly overrun by a stampede of bulls, a flurry of chickens, and a parade of pigs. Lily gasped in disbelief as the animals roamed freely throughout the main World's Fair pavilion, creating a dangerous scene. Kevin immediately sprang into action, his mind racing with thoughts of how to contain the situation. Everyone stay calm, he called out, his voice projecting above the commotion. We need to get these animals back into their enclosures before anyone gets hurt. Kevin considered melding minds with all the animals, but there were too many. They were too varied, and they were all running amok. He would have to do this the old-fashioned way. With quick thinking and agility, Kevin and a few brave volunteers from the press worked together to corral the animals, herding them back toward their respective stalls. It was a chaotic and challenging task, but their concerted efforts began to yield results as order slowly returned to the exhibit hall. There we go, Kevin shouted. All the animals are heading back to their little homes. We're all okay. Everything is okay. The press took note of everything that was happening. Ruby watched as men and women alike took photos and jotted down notes. This was going to be bad. Meanwhile, Lily coordinated with the fair staff to assess the situation and ensure the safety of the animals. Emergency protocols were activated and additional personnel were called in to assist with crowd control and animal wrangling. Despite the unexpected setback, Lily remained determined to salvage the day and uphold the spirit of the World's Fair. With teamwork and perseverance, they managed to restore a sense of normalcy, reassuring the families and restoring their faith in the event. As the last of the animals were safely returned to their enclosures, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the exhibit hall. Lily walked up to Kevin. "What a day," Lily remarked. "I'm so glad you were here to help." "It's all right," Kevin replied. "The worst is over." Just then, the lights around the fair went out. Kevin, Lily, and all of the members of the press were cast into total darkness. Kevin looked on as all of the lights in all of Chicago began to fade. The entire city went black. As darkness enveloped the city in an unexpected blackout, chaos ensued once again. The sudden loss of power left the press and residents alike full of alarm. "Is this from the app?" Lily worried. "It can't be," Kevin replied. "Yes, it can," Alma Capone chimed in. "The app is connected directly to the Chicago power station. If things went totally wrong, it could have short-circuited not just the fairgrounds, but the entire city. And it looks like that's exactly what just happened." Lily's face went white. "Oh no." Kevin escorted Lily to a press conference where she had hoped to showcase the technological advancements that would be part of the upcoming World's Fair. But to Lily's horror, the new World's Fair app began to go haywire, mixing up directions to different venues, releasing circus animals from their cages, and causing all of Chicago to lose power in an instant. As the city remained cloaked in darkness, the relentless flash of cameras from the eager members of the press served as a huge humiliation to Lily, who bore the blame for the recent chaos as both the mayor of Chicago and the organizer of the World's Fair. "Do you have any comments, Mayor Williams?" one member of the press shouted. "How do you explain how badly this is going?" another member of the press chimed in. Caught in the unforgiving glare of media scrutiny, Lily struggled to maintain her composure amid the mess unfolding around her. Despite her best efforts to project confidence and control, Lily couldn't shake the gnawing sense of shame that threatened to consume her. As reporters clamored for answers and onlookers whispered in hushed tones, Lily grappled with feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. The once promising vision of the World's Fair now seemed like a distant dream, overshadowed by the harsh reality of its chaotic unraveling. "I don't know," Lily offered. "I don't have any answers for you right now, but I assure you we're going to get this figured out," she said with the confidence that had, up until this chaos, been the tone of her administration. In the midst of the turmoil, Lily found herself at a crossroads, torn between the desire to salvage the World's Fair and the overwhelming burden of her own perceived failure. With each flash of the camera, the pressure mounted, threatening to crush her spirit under its weight. Suddenly, the unsettling sound of smashing glass could be heard. People were using the power outage to break into the many World's Fair exhibits. Panic rippled through the already tense atmosphere, intensifying Lily's sense of unease. "What's going on?" Lily worried. "Who's doing that?" Determined to confront the source of the disturbance, Kevin seized a flashlight and forged ahead into the darkness. Guided by the dim beam of the flashlight, Kevin navigated the darkened walkway toward the exhibit halls, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. As he drew closer to the source of the commotion, the sound of shattering glass grew louder, echoing off the cavernous walls. Voices could be heard as men called out orders to each other. "Move!" one voice shouted. "Smash as much as you can! Tear this place apart!" Kevin reached the source of the disturbance and shone his flashlight into the darkness. What he saw sent a shiver down his spine. A group of circus carnies, performers hired to entertain at the World's Fair, some dressed as clowns, others as carnival barkers, bearded ladies and old-timey muscle men were working together to smash all the different exhibits, wreaking havoc on the entirety of Lily's hard work. "Stop right there!" Without hesitation, Kevin sprang into action, confronting the intruders. A tense standoff ensued, with Kevin's resolve pitted against an army of evil costume freaks. Instinctively, Kevin sensed danger. These weren't ordinary carnival performers, they had levels. Kevin quickly realized that this was no random act of vandalism. It was a carefully orchestrated attack, and Kevin had stumbled right into the middle of it. "You want us to stop busting up the place?" the lead carnival barker asked with a sinister grin as his cohorts fell in behind him. "Then I guess you're gonna have to make us stop." As the carnies closed in, their malevolent intent palpable in the air, Kevin braced himself for the confrontation ahead. With no time to waste, Kevin called upon his own abilities. He had recently leveled up. Kevin was now a level 9 fighter, but those abilities were new and not fully tested. But Kevin couldn't worry about that at the moment. It was time to fight. With a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins, Kevin squared off against the sinister group, his every sense on high alert for any sign of danger. In the dark, moonlit exhibit hall, the scene resembled a surreal nightmare, with Kevin standing alone against a battalion of evil carnies intent on doing their worst. "Kill him!" the head barker shouted. The army of carnies converged on Kevin. Kevin's instincts kicked into overdrive, propelling him into action against the mob of leveled carnies. Kevin's level 9 prowess was a sight to behold. He kicked and punched with a new degree of speed and power. Clowns were knocked back, muscle men were thrown through glass, and bearded women screamed as Kevin karate chopped their throats. But even as Kevin cut through his adversaries, the sheer number of carnies threatened to overwhelm him. There were just too many. Despite the odds, Kevin fought with ferocious determination, his every move calculated and precise. With lightning-fast reflexes, Kevin dispatched clown after clown, delivering powerful blows that turned their chalk-caked faces into black and blue reminders of the mistake they had made in deciding to fight with Kevin. But the carnies were relentless, their coordinated assault proving formidable. A dozen animal wranglers dressed as cowboys lassoed Kevin, attempting to restrain him, but Kevin refused to be subdued. With a mighty roar, he summoned every ounce of strength within him, breaking free from the ropes that bound him and launching a counterattack with devastating force. With each punch and kick, Kevin fought to turn the tide of battle, but he was starting to get tired. Kevin needed to contain this threat fast before the press could see the carnage and use it against Lily. Kevin stepped back from the battle for a moment and quickly called Troy Evans, his Radiance leader. "Troy," Kevin proclaimed, "it's Kevin Williams. I need backup at the World's Fair. Now!" Suddenly, multiple helicopters flew overhead and a squadron of Radiance fighters rappelled down ropes towards the waiting battle. "Retreat!" the lead carnival barker shouted. "Everybody head to the Crystal Pavilion." With the arrival of the leveled Radiance fighters, the tide of the melee shifted. The army of carnival workers all headed for the main World's Fair Pavilion, a brilliant glass-encased superdome. Kevin led the Radiance fighters in pursuit. "Don't let them get away," Kevin exclaimed. A fierce battle erupted with punches thrown, kicks delivered, and weapons clashing in a dazzling display of combat prowess. Kevin led the charge, his every move calculated and precise, as he fought to protect the fair that Lily had worked so hard to create. Despite the carnies' best efforts, they were no match for the combined strength and skill of Kevin and the Radiance fighters. One by one, the circus freaks fell before the might of Kevin and his allies. As the last of the carnies was defeated, a sense of triumph swept through the Crystal Pavilion. Kevin and the Radiance fighters emerged victorious, their courage and sacrifice ensuring the safety of the World's Fair and all those young and old who dreamed of attending it. Using his flashlight, Kevin quickly surveyed the aftermath of the epic battle, relieved that the major exhibits, including the resizing ray and the teleportation device, remained secure. However, his relief was short-lived as a sinking realization gripped him. The face-off machine, a crucial component of the World's Fair, was nowhere to be found. "Where is it?" Kevin whispered to himself. "In the chaos, someone must have taken the machine," Kevin mused with worry. Kevin's mind raced as he considered the implications of the missing device. The face-off machine was one of the cornerstones of the fair's exhibits. With a sense of urgency, Kevin rallied his allies. Together they embarked on a search for the missing face-off machine, scouring every corner of the fairgrounds in a race against time. As they combed through exhibition halls and corridors, Kevin's mind churned with possibilities. Who could have taken the face-off machine and for what purpose? Was it the work of the same nefarious forces that had orchestrated the earlier chaos? Or was there a new threat lurking in the shadows? Stanley Cooper and Karen Stone suddenly stormed onto the darkened scene, their expressions grim as they surveyed the chaos that had engulfed the Crystal Pavilion. They spotted Kevin amid the darkness and quickly approached. "We heard over the government wires you lost the face-off machine?" Karen probed. "We trusted you to keep the technology safe until after the fair." "We have to get it back," Stanley declared, his voice edged with urgency. "If that face-off machine fell into the wrong hands, there's no telling what kind of damage could be done." Kevin nodded in agreement, his eyes flashing with determination. "I'll do everything in my power to recover the machine," he vowed, his voice resolute. "But first, I need to get the power back on in Chicago. It'll be easy to find the face-off machine when we can actually see what's right in front of us." Kevin set out to gather intelligence and piece together clues that might lead him to the whereabouts of the missing machine. Determined to confront this new threat head-on, Kevin, Stanley Cooper, and Agent Karen Stone braced themselves for the challenges that lay ahead. With the fate of the World's Fair hanging in the balance, they knew they couldn't afford to fail. After the city was cast into total darkness and the face-off machine was stolen from the World's Fair Pavilion, Kevin focused on restoring power to the city before things got any worse. After a fierce battle with an army of evil-leveled carnival workers, Kevin plotted his next move. Suddenly, he took note of several carnies quickly making their escape from Kevin and the chaotic scene. Kevin turned to Stanley Cooper, who stood nearby. "There, those carnies. I'm going to follow them." "Follow them?" Stanley replied. "Why?" "Hopefully they'll bring me back to the source of this power outage," Kevin explained. "I need to get the power back on and the lights working in the city again before things get any worse." Stanley nodded in understanding. "Radio me if you need any help," Stanley offered. "I'm always just a helicopter ride away." "Appreciate that. Always." Kevin shook Stanley's hand and then darted into the shadows, his senses heightened as he pursued the fleeing carnies through the dimly lit streets of Chicago. Despite the darkness that enveloped the city, Kevin's instincts guided him as he tracked the evasive figures through alleyways and deserted thoroughfares. As he closed in on his targets, Kevin's mind raced with questions. Why were the carnies fleeing? What did they hope to achieve? And most importantly, where were they headed? Kevin watched as the carnies reached a high perimeter fence and began to climb over it. Kevin took in the scene. In the darkened pursuit, Kevin hadn't taken the time to keep tabs on his location geographically. But as he looked at the fence, he spotted a sign that suddenly sent chills down his spine. The sign read simply, "No trespassing, nuclear power plant ahead." Kevin's eyes went wide. "The nuclear power plant," Kevin whispered. That's how they were able to turn off all the lights. It wasn't the app. These carnival freaks have taken control of the nuclear power plant. Kevin's mind raced with the possibilities. He wondered how many more carnies were waiting on the other side of that fence. How hard would it be to fight his way inside the power plant and restart the lights? Kevin had so many questions, but he knew the answers were all waiting on the other side of the perimeter fence, so he took a deep breath and climbed over and to the other side. Kevin raced forward. His heart raced as he surveyed the scene before him. The nuclear power plant, once the center of energy for the city, now stood dark and foreboding, surrounded by a sea of carnival tents and food carts. The air was thick with tension as a second army of assembled carnies milled about, their faces twisted with anticipation and malice. More carnies, Kevin whispered to himself. Kevin had just fought through 1,000 evil clowns and he was tired from the battle, but he realized he wasn't done yet. If he wanted to get the power back on and light up the Chicago night, he would have to fight yet again. Kevin's mind remained clear. He knew he had to act fast if he wanted to prevent further disaster. With stealth born of years of training, he slipped through the shadows, avoiding detection as he sought out the heart of the carnies' operation. Finally, he found it. The power plant's large cafeteria. Inside, the ringleaders of the carnies were gathered, their voices raised in heated discussion as they plotted their next move. The head clown shouted orders. "We just sit tight. We have our orders. We just need to make sure the lights stay off long enough for the boss to get what she wants." The boss? Kevin wondered to himself. Who was the true ringleader of this operation? A man on stilts pushed back against the lead clown. "We don't need to listen to her. We have the power plant. We can hold the city hostage any way we want. We could be rich." "If she hears you talking like that, you won't be rich. You'll be dead," the lead clown pushed back. "Stick to the plan." Kevin listened intently, his senses attuned to every word. He learned that the carnies planned to use the power plant as a base of operations, launching coordinated attacks on key locations throughout the city to sow chaos and confusion throughout the night. And it was all meant to hurt Lily's reputation. With a sinking feeling, Kevin realized that he was running out of time. He needed to act quickly to stop the carnies before their full plan could be put into motion. Taking a deep breath to steady his nerves, Kevin stepped out of the shadows and confronted the ringleaders head-on. His voice was firm and commanding as he laid out his ultimatum. "This freak show is over," Kevin commanded. "Surrender peacefully or face the consequences." Kevin finished and took a fighting stance. For a moment, there was silence as the carnies stared at him in disbelief, and then chaos erupted as they launched themselves at Kevin with reckless abandon, their fists flying and weapons drawn. But Kevin was ready. With lightning-fast reflexes, he dodged their blows and fought back with all of his strength, his years of training and experience serving him well in the heat of battle. The lead clown pushed through the fight and called out, "Reinforcements! Bring in the reinforcements!" Hundreds of additional carnies flooded the halls from their tents outside. With newfound levels pulsing through him, Kevin surged forward, his every movement a blur of speed and precision. The mob of carnies descended upon him like a tidal wave, but Kevin met their onslaught with unwavering resolve. Kevin's fists moved like lightning, striking with pinpoint accuracy as he laid waste to his adversaries. With each blow, he felt the power coursing through him, fueling his every movement and driving him ever onward. Level 9 feels different, Kevin thought as his fists flew with reckless abandon. But as the battle raged on, Kevin felt the strain of his newfound abilities taking its toll. The heat in his hands and the pounding in his head grew more intense with each passing moment, threatening to overwhelm him. A half-dozen bearded women ran at Kevin, who focused his mind and pushed them back with his newly acquired telekinetic powers. The level 9 mind push had worked, but Kevin knew he couldn't rely on his telekinetic powers for long without tiring himself out, and thus making himself vulnerable. Moving forward, Kevin focused his energy on more traditional combat techniques. With expertly timed strikes and deft footwork, he danced through the fray, dodging blows and delivering devastating counterattacks. But despite his best efforts, the sheer numbers of the carnies threatened to overwhelm him. For every foe he felled, 24 more seemed to take their place, and Kevin knew that he was fighting a losing battle. Desperation crept into his mind as he searched for a way to turn the tide. And then, in a moment of clarity, he saw his opportunity. A narrow corridor leading to the main controls of the power plant. With renewed determination, Kevin fought his way forward, pushing through the throng of carnies with single-minded focus. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest, but he pushed himself onward, driven by the knowledge that the fate of the city hung in the balance. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Kevin reached his destination. With a final burst of strength, he forced open the doors to the control room and stepped inside, ready to confront whatever awaited him within. To his shock, the room was empty except for a single sad clown. "Hello," the clown waved. "It's nice to finally have some company." Kevin kicked the clown in the face and focused on the control panel. With a flick of a switch, Kevin restored power to the city, banishing the darkness that had gripped it for far too long. As the lights flickered back to life, the hum of electricity filled the air, a tangible reminder of Kevin's victory. Trains roared to life, streetlights illuminated the streets, and the city began to stir once more. From her vantage point at the World's Fair, Lily watched in awe as the city came back to life right before her eyes. A sense of relief washed over her as she realized that Kevin had succeeded in his mission. "Thank you, Kevin," she whispered, her heart swelling with gratitude for the man who had saved the day once again. But even as she spoke the words, she knew that their work was far from over. "I have an announcement," Lily shouted. "Power has been restored to the city, and the World's Fair is going to go off without a hitch. To prove that to you, I'm going to take the inaugural ride on our Ferris wheel, the largest Ferris wheel ever constructed." Determined to show strength in the face of adversity, Lily led the way to the towering Ferris wheel, her resolve unwavering despite the chaos that had unfolded in the city. As they approached the entrance to the ride, the press swarmed around Lily, bombarding her with questions and concerns about her decision. "Mayor, are you sure it's safe to go on the Ferris wheel with everything that's been happening? Shouldn't you be focusing on fixing the problems in the city instead of taking a joyride?" But Lily remained steadfast in her belief that they needed to project an image of stability and resilience. "I have complete faith in the safety of this ride," she declared, her voice firm and unwavering. "Nothing could possibly happen." With that, Lily stepped onto the platform and boarded the Ferris wheel as she hugged her swollen belly where she and Kevin's twins were preparing, surely to be born in just a matter of days. As the ride began to ascend, she felt a sense of calm wash over her, the rhythmic motion of the wheel soothing her frazzled nerves. From their elevated vantage point, Lily could see the city spread out before them, bathed in the soft glow of the newly restored lights. Despite the challenges she, as mayor, had faced, there was a sense of hope in the air, a belief that Lily would emerge from this crisis stronger than ever before. As she reached the peak of the ride, Lily looked out at the city below, her heart filled with determination. "We will get through this," she whispered to herself, a steely resolve shining in her eyes. "Together, we will overcome." After dealing with endless chaos after the failed launch of the World's Fair app, Lily tried to calm everyone's nerves and win back the press's respect by taking the inaugural ride on one of the fair's biggest attractions, the tallest Ferris wheel in the world. As Lily slowly rose above the Chicago skyline in the carriage of the massive Ferris wheel, Alma Capone was busy plotting with Juanita Hernandez, just beyond the sight of the prying eyes of the reporters and cameras that were currently focused on Mayor Lily. "This is a disaster," Alma seethed. "This was supposed to be a dagger in Lily's heart, an epic embarrassment that she could never recover from. But her stupid husband Kevin ruined everything. He fought off my henchmen and was able to restore power to the city." Alma shook her head in frustration, her plans unraveling before her eyes, thanks to the meddling of Kevin Williams. Juanita Hernandez looked on with mutual concern. "How do you think I feel?" Juanita pushed back. "I was finally able to steal the face-off machine from the World's Fair exhibit hall, but now all the lights are back on. I thought I'd be able to sneak off under the cover of total darkness, but now that the lights are back on, I can't leave here without the press spotting me." Juanita clutched the face-off machine tightly in her hands, her mind racing as she searched for a way to salvage the situation. "We need to act fast," Juanita urged, her voice low but urgent. "We can't afford to let this opportunity slip away." Alma nodded grimly, her mind spinning with possibilities. "We need a new distraction," Alma mused aloud, her eyes narrowing in thought. "The blackout should have been enough, but now that Kevin's foiled that plan, we need something else. Something big enough to draw the attention of the press and the authorities away from you so you can make your escape with the face-off machine. Juanita nodded in agreement. Yes, that's good. Something big, and something that will embarrass Lily even more, just like you had hoped, so we can both get what we wanted in the first place. Juanita suddenly spotted Lily rising high above the city on the Ferris wheel in the distance, the press snapping photos below. A wicked grin formed across Juanita's lips. I have an idea, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. But we'll need to act fast. Alma listened intently as Juanita outlined her plan. She couldn't believe what Juanita was suggesting. Juanita Hernandez, Alma noted. You really are living up to your wicked reputation. That's a fantastic idea, and I have just the man who can help us pull it off. Alma's fingers flew across her phone's screen as she quickly dialed the number for Rat the hacker. Rat lived in his parents' basement, but he knew his way around a computer. After a time, Rat picked up the phone, sipping a soda as he rubbed his exposed belly. This is Rat. Who's this? Alma's eyes went wide with delight. Rat, it's Alma Capone, she said urgently as soon as the call connected. I need you to do something for me, and it needs to happen now. Rat's voice crackled through the line, his tone tinged with curiosity. Alma, good to hear from you. I'm listening. What do you need? I want you to hack into the controls of the Ferris wheel at the World's Fairgrounds, Alma replied. I need you to shut it down. Shut it down? That's dangerous, Rat explained. Stopping a Ferris wheel abruptly could cause it to break completely or cause the gears to slide off their axles. Good, Alma replied. Whatever happens, happens. The worse, the better. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line as Rat processed her request. Then, without hesitation, he replied with a grin. $50,000, and it's done. I'll wire the money to your parents' account right now, Alma countered. Rat smiled. Then I'll get started. Alma breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that Rat was one of the best in the business. If anyone could pull off this feat, it was Rat. Meanwhile, high above the fairgrounds, Lily rode the Ferris wheel, enjoying a rare moment of peace amid the chaos that had recently consumed the city. Lily took in the beautiful Chicago skyline touching her belly, thinking about her soon-to-be-born twins. She wished Kevin was with her, that they could be enjoying this sweet moment together, as a family. Just then, the Ferris wheel ground to a sudden, jarring halt. Lily was pushed forward but held on. What was that? Lily exclaimed, her voice tinged with fear as the Ferris wheel shuddered to a stop. What's happening? But there was no answer, only the eerie silence of the night. Lily was too high for anyone to hear her, too high for anyone to come save her. She was stuck. Oh no, Lily thought. This is bad. As Lily's carriage hung precariously in the air, swaying gently with each breath of wind, her heart raced with fear. The sudden stop of the Ferris wheel had caught her off guard, leaving her feeling vulnerable and exposed. Lily closed her eyes and focused her mind. She whispered quietly out into the universe. Kevin, my love, I need your help. Down below, the press was snapping photos of the faulty Ferris wheel and of the city's stranded 9 months pregnant mayor. It's broken, one member of the press shouted. The tallest Ferris wheel in the world is totally busted. And Mayor Williams is stuck at the top, another noted. Alma and Juanita watched with delight. You've done it, Juanita offered. That's quite the distraction. All eyes are on that Ferris wheel. I'll be able to slip out the back without notice. You're a genius, Alma. Alma shook her head defiantly. I told you, Juanita, just call me Ma. But Juanita's pleased expression suddenly dropped. Wait, look! Up in the sky. What is that? High above on the Ferris wheel, Lily remained stuck, With her 9 months pregnant belly pressed against the safety bar, Lily's breaths came in short, panicked gasps as she suddenly spotted something emerging from the clouds ahead. It was a plane.
"Alma, what are you doing?" Juanita cried out. "Don't kill Lily. Not yet. I need those babies. There's a plane headed straight for her."
Alma lifted her phone.
Rat! There's a plane heading right for the Ferris wheel. What are you doing?"
"It's not me," Rat replied. "Air traffic control must have gone down when the city lost power. That plane must be lost. It's totally off course."
"Well, do something,"
Alma insisted,
"before the plane crashes into the Ferris wheel."
Rat typed away on multiple computers, desperately trying to reroute the airliner. "I can't," Rat replied. "I can't get the Ferris wheel moving again. I hacked the controls. They're infested with a computer virus. I can't undo what I've done." High above the ground, Lily looked on in horror as the plane roared closer, its engines deafening. Lily once again closed her eyes and prayed for a miracle. "I hope this isn't it," she whispered softly. "I hope this isn't the end. I want to see my babies be born. I want to give them names. I want to share that moment with Kevin. I want to see his eyes when he becomes a father for the first and second time. I don't want to die. Not here. Not tonight. Not alone. I said it before and I'll say it again. Kevin, I need your help." Across town, still helping the authorities arrest carnival workers at the power plant, Kevin was suddenly struck by something. A tinge of concern. Something was wrong. He could sense it. Trusting his instincts, Kevin quickly turned to a nearby TV playing the local news. He suddenly saw a report showing what was happening with Lily, the Ferris wheel, and the quickly approaching plane. "Lily," Kevin gasped. "No!" Kevin took off running, desperate to save Lily before it was too late. As Kevin raced through the streets of Chicago, his mind raced with worry for Lily and their unborn twins. The streets were a chaotic mess, filled with panicked civilians and frantic emergency vehicles because of the recent power outage. Kevin dodged and weaved through the mess, using his level 9 agility to slip through tiny cracks in the crowds fast. As he neared the fairgrounds, Kevin could see the massive Ferris wheel silhouetted against the night sky, its carriages dangling precariously in the air. He can also hear the roar of the plane's engines growing louder and louder, signaling its imminent collision with Lily. As he burst through the gates of the World's Fair, Kevin was met by a troubling scene. Reporters and onlookers crowded around the base of the Ferris wheel, their cameras flashing and voices raised in panic. With each passing second, Kevin's heart pounded harder in his chest. He knew he had to act fast if he wanted to save Lily from certain doom. "Lily!" Kevin shouted, but she couldn't hear him. The members of the press suddenly turned and started taking pictures of Kevin as well. "Kevin Williams!" one reporter shouted. "What are you feeling right now?"
"Do you think the plane will hit her?"
another asked. Ignoring the chaos around him, Kevin pushed through the crowd, his eyes fixed on the top of the Ferris wheel where Lily dangled. He could see the plane getting closer and closer, its light shining brightly against the dark night sky. Kevin's eyes focused. "Lily, I'm coming. Somehow." After dealing with endless chaos during her press conference for the upcoming World's Fair, Lily tried to calm everyone's nerves by taking an inaugural ride on the tallest Ferris wheel in the world. But Alma Capone hacked the Ferris wheel's controls, trapping Lily at the very top with a plane heading right for her, and with Kevin rushing to save his beloved wife but fearing he might not get there in time. As the plane hurtled toward the Ferris wheel, Lily's cries for help echoed through the night air. "Help!" Lily cried out. "Someone please do something!" Panic surged through the crowd of press and onlookers alike as they watched the impending disaster about to unfold. "That plane's heading right for her!" one man yelled. "There's no way to get her down in time!" another man exclaimed. Disagree. Kevin pushed back as he stepped through the crowd and raced toward the Ferris wheel. I'm coming, Lily, Kevin shouted. Rachel, Lily's best friend and mayoral aide, ran up to him. Kevin, Lily's trapped up there. We're trying to get the Ferris wheel going again, but something's wrong with the controls, and we can't reach the pilots on that plane. It's too late for any of that, Kevin explained. There's only one thing that can save Lily now. Rachel frowned in confusion. What? Kevin opened his palm, revealing the resizing ray he was now holding. Me. Kevin had run to the nearest exhibit hall and taken the resizing ray. Rachel didn't understand. The resizing ray, Rachel noted. What are you going to do? Anything I can, Kevin replied. Without a moment's hesitation, Kevin pointed the device at himself and fired. The press jumped back as they watched Kevin's body double in size. They snapped photos and gasped in awe at the sight of the city's richest and most powerful man growing in front of them. Kevin was bigger, but not nearly big enough. He fired at himself again, and again, and again. With each blast of the resizing ray, Kevin grew taller and taller until he towered above the fairgrounds and the Ferris wheel at a staggering height of 2,000 feet. His clothes stretched and strained and burst against his expanding frame, and his voice boomed like thunder as he called out to his beautiful pregnant wife who was still trapped on the Ferris wheel. Lily, hold on tight, Kevin shouted, his voice carrying across the fairgrounds like a clap of thunder. I won't let that plane hurt you. Lily's eyes swelled with joy at the sight. Kevin, you came back for me, for us, Lily shouted as she clutched her pregnant belly. Kevin gave his wife a gigantic wink and then turned his attention toward the quickly approaching 747 flying right at his dear wife and soon-to-be-born twins. With determined strides, Kevin waded out into the water beyond the Ferris wheel. Okay, nice and easy now, Kevin thought to himself. You only get one shot at this. Kevin reached up and carefully gripped the back of the plane with his thumb and middle finger. He then turned the plane slightly to the left and then let it go once again. Lily watched as the plane flew right past her, narrowly avoiding the Ferris wheel and total disaster. The press below let out a raucous cheer. They snapped photos and applauded the unexpected victory. With the plane safely heading in a new direction, Kevin refocused on Lily and on the Ferris wheel, his enormous form casting a shadow over the entire fairgrounds. You saved me, Kevin, Lily exclaimed. It's the least I could do, Kevin replied, his voice booming like a bullhorn through the night. And I'm not done yet. Kevin reached out with one enormous hand, gently cradling the carriage containing Lily and their two unborn children. With careful precision, he lifted the carriage from its precarious perch and pulled it off the main Ferris wheel. Kevin moved the carriage close to his chest, shielding it from the cold night air. With one final burst of strength, Kevin gently gave the Ferris wheel a push, causing it to spin once again. You did it, Kevin, Rachel shouted. The Ferris wheel is turning again. The controls are unlocked. The crowd below once again erupted into cheers and applause, their faces filled with awe and wonder at the incredible sight before them. As Kevin looked down at Lily, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude, he knew that in that moment, everything would be okay. With a careful and deliberate movement, giant Kevin gently lowered Lily from the Ferris wheel carriage back onto the solid ground. As Lily's feet touched the earth once more, a collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd. Above them, the plane roared past, its engines roaring as it circled the area. Lily's heart raced as she watched the plane streak by, the rush of wind and the deafening roar of its engine filling her ears. Lily looked up at Kevin, her eyes wide with gratitude. Thank you, Kevin, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmur of the crowd. You saved us and the World's Fair. Kevin smiled down at her, his eyes filled with warmth and love. I'll always protect you, he replied, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. A tear of joy rolled down Lily's face. Kevin reached out with his enormous finger and gently dried her eye. As the crowd continued to cheer and applaud the sight, Lily wrapped her arms around Kevin's massive finger, squeezing it tight. Lily suddenly found herself surrounded once again by a swarm of reporters, their cameras flashing and their voices clamoring for her attention. She stood there, still reeling from the adrenaline of the near miss of the plane, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions that had just swept through her. And then, just as she was about to be engulfed by the crowd, she heard a familiar voice calling out to her. Turning, she saw Dorothy pushing her way through the throng, her expression one of utter annoyance. "Goodness gracious, Lily, what on earth were you thinking?" Dorothy exclaimed, her hands fluttering anxiously as she approached. "Riding on the world's largest Ferris wheel at a time like this in your condition? It's positively reckless." "Mother, please, this isn't the time," Lily offered. "Not the time, it's the perfect time," Dorothy countered. "Everything about this fair is so dangerous." Lily sighed inwardly, knowing that there was no point in trying to reason with Dorothy when she got like this. Instead, she plastered on a smile and nodded, silently bracing herself for the inevitable lecture that was sure to follow. But before Dorothy could launch into her tirade, a voice bellowed through the chaos, drawing everyone's attention. It was Kevin, still towering in the distance, his expression calm and composed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying over the noise of the crowd. "What you just witnessed was a little bit of theatricality, a touch of play acting, if you will. Lily was in on it. The plane was in on it. And I was in on it. We just wanted to give you a taste of the amazing technology and experiences you'll have access to at the Chicago World's Fair." Lily suddenly realized what Kevin was doing. He was pretending everything that had just happened was on purpose. He was saving Lily once again. Before he had saved her life, but now he was saving her as mayor of Chicago. The crowd fell silent, their eyes fixed on Kevin as he spoke, his words weaving a spell of anticipation and excitement. As Kevin continued to speak, outlining all the wonders and delights that awaited them at the fair, Lily felt a surge of pride and gratitude swell within her. For in that moment, she realized that Kevin truly was a master of turning lemons into lemonade, or taking even the most dire situations and transforming them into opportunities for joy and wonder. And as she stood there, watching him hold court amid the chaos, she knew that with him by her side, anything was possible. As the chaos of the near disaster subsided, Kevin pointed the resizing ray back at himself and fired. Kevin felt the familiar tingling sensation as he began to shrink back to his normal size. The relief washed over him as he returned to his usual stature, surrounded by the buzzing energy of the press and the excited chatter of the crowd. But amid the jubilation, Kevin's mind was still racing. He couldn't shake the nagging worry about the stolen face-off machine. The implication of its theft were troubling, and he knew he couldn't rest easy until he had figured out a way to retrieve it. However, Lily's infectious enthusiasm proved to be a welcome distraction. She was positively radiant as she stood at the entrance to the World's Fair, ready to cut the ribbon and officially open the event to the public. Ticket sales were soaring, and the anticipation in the air gave everyone in the crowd a sense of elation. Kevin couldn't help but be swept up in her excitement. Despite the lingering concerns about the stolen machine, he couldn't deny the thrill of seeing the excitement from the people regarding the World's Fair. Everyone was eager to explore all the wonders that awaited them inside once the fair finally opened. As Lily took center stage, her smile lighting up the night, Kevin couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Together, they had overcome incredible odds to make this moment possible. Kevin knew that the Chicago World's Fair was destined to be an event unlike any other, a testament to the power of resilience, determination, and above all, love. After many challenges and setbacks, Kevin and Lily were finally sure the Chicago World's Fair was ready to be opened. The crowd gathered outside the World's Fair was one of the largest Kevin had ever seen. Millions of people had flocked to the city to see the wonders of the fair, especially after Kevin had given such an incredible demonstration of the resizing ray, and from certain death as a plane neared the top of the tallest Ferris wheel ever constructed, where terrifyingly, 9 months pregnant Lily had gotten stranded. They were only minutes from opening the gates and allowing the crowd to flood inside the fairgrounds. For the moment, all the fair's wonders were hidden from curious eyes under the geodesic dome of superglass. As mayor, Lily was scheduled to officially open the fair. She tugged her tailored blazer over her bulging stomach. "How does my jacket look?" she asked Kevin. He was there to support her in his role as the first gentleman of Chicago. Kevin smiled at her. "You look beautiful as always." Although the delivery date for her twins was looming, Lily was as graceful and energetic as ever. Lily smiled back. "Thank you, Kevin, but I was asking about my jacket. My belly grows bigger every day and my clothes are having trouble keeping up." She could close her blazer over her bulging tummy, but the button looked like it might pop any second. "Let me try something," Kevin offered. He dug around in his trusty bag of herbal ingredients and other supplies and found a stray safety pin. He channeled all his strength into uncurling the end of the pin. Then he sliced the button from Lily's blazer and looped it through the pin. Then he reattached it to where the button had originally been. The length of the safety pin essentially gave Lily another inch of breathing room. "Kevin, you're a genius!" Lily gave him a peck on the cheek as a thank you.
I'll say he is.
Alma Capone, the mob leader who had wheedled her way into Lily's staff by posing as a world-famous event planner, announced,
"Thanks to your little PR stunt with the resizing ray, Kevin, the fair is sold out, and there's a waiting list that is 6 miles long. We've already added extra days, and every hotel room in the tri-state area is booked solid."
Kevin frowned. It wasn't a PR stunt. Lily could have been really hurt if I hadn't blown myself up in time to save her from falling from the Ferris wheel.
"Whatever,"
Alma waved Kevin's protest away.
"Here are your schedules for the first day of the fair."
Kevin looked at his printout and then at Lily's. After the opening ceremony, Lily and I don't have a single event together. And why am I judging livestock all afternoon? Alma blinked at him.
"I thought you wanted to be in the barns."
She looked Kevin up and down, staring pointedly at his simple Dockers and Keds.
"Isn't that why you wore those old clothes today?"
Before Kevin could respond, Alma flew off to deliver more schedules to city dignitaries. "I was hoping the fair would allow us to spend more time together, not apart," Kevin grumbled. Lily gave him a reassuring pat. "There's still the Red Stars exhibit and the premiere of Cleopatra, the Last Queen. The city is still thrilled that our hometown women's soccer team won the championship, so we're going to treat them to an exhibition match. And I'm proud that as the owner of the team, you've helped them to become the top women's soccer team in the world." Lily dropped her voice lower. "And even if Alma and the others don't realize it, I know how much work you've put into the fair. You're the one who found the teleportation system, the resizing ray, and the face-off machine." "I'm still worried that the face-off machine has gone missing. That exhibit was going to be one of the highlights of the fair, surely." Kevin glanced at the fairgrounds, but even he couldn't see through the superglass. Right now, the dome only reflected the city of Chicago that surrounded them. He could admire all that the fair was displaying and was thrilled that millions of people had swarmed into his hometown of Chicago for the exhibitions, but it did worry him that the face-off machine could have fallen into the wrong hands. But he didn't want to burden Lily with any of the thoughts that were nagging at him. "Don't worry," Lily assured him. "Alma had a last-minute application from an attraction, so we just threw it in to take the place where the face-off machine would have been. It's a haunted house. I hear it's supposed to be extremely scary and realistic." She gave a delighted shudder. Right on time, Lily stepped onto a dais to address the huge crowd. "Ladies, gentlemen, and children of all ages, Chicago is honored to once again host the World's Fair. We have brought together the very best in art, science, food, and technology from around the world and our own backyards. all for you to experience and enjoy. We hope this fair sparks community, inspiration, and wonder. I hereby declare this year's World's Fair open." Lily pushed down on a comically outsized button. The geodesic dome over the fairgrounds immediately lost its reflective quality as the panels of superglass went from mirrored to transparent. With shouts of joy and excitement, the crowd surged forward, eager to see all the fair had to offer. Kevin just had time to see Lily blow him a kiss before her staff and the press swept her off for her own rounds of mayoral duties. Kevin spent the rest of the day in the barns judging one kind of livestock after another. Although it wasn't part of the usual judging, he covertly had brief communication with each animal to get a sense of how they were being treated and generally feeling while on display. Kevin awarded blue ribbons based as much on the animal's happiness as he did based on their conformation to arbitrary breeding standards. Throughout the day, he noticed various members of his Radiance team making the rounds through the crowd. The police and the extra security hired by the fair could always handle the usual roughhousing and pickpockets that fairs attracted, but the thought of the pinnacle was never far from Kevin's mind. He felt better that his own people were keeping an eye on things. Toward late afternoon, Sasha, a protege of Kevin's whom he had taken under his wing during the Epic Clash, which Kevin had won and which had parlayed him to the upper realm, joined Kevin to give him an update. He had nothing out of the ordinary to report, but Sasha did get a kick out of Kevin's schedule when he heard about it. "You're judging the greased pig contest next. I haven't seen one of those since I was knee-high to a beanstalk." Kevin frowned. "What is a greased pig contest exactly?" "Like bull riding for little kids, only harder," Sasha explained. "They cover a pig in grease, put a tot on top, and see how long the kitty can hold on." "Isn't that dangerous?" "Nah, the grease doesn't hurt the pig at all," Sasha laughed. Kevin was not amused. "And the kids are usually fine," Sasha added. "Pigs are low to the ground to start, and the kids will have helmets. You'll see." The grease pig contest was just as Sasha had described. As a judge, Kevin had little to do other than to be in charge of the stopwatch. His lightning-fast reflexes were needed for the stopwatch, though. Most of the kids fell off the slippery hogs within a second or two of being sent out of the mounting pen. As Sasha predicted, none of the kids got hurt. They popped up as quickly as they went down, usually grinning and as greasy as their mounts. They were down to the last contestant when Kevin noticed a disturbance in the mounting pen. Instead of standing still while the child was placed on its greased back, the final hog was kicking at the pen and snorting with irritation. Kevin was about to suggest another pig be used when the hog gave a massive kick and the mounting pen burst open. The startled parent unfortunately let go of their child at the same moment. The hog tore into the ring, oinking and snorting. It sounded more like a furious bull than overfed future bacon. Fear gave the child on its back added strength, and she clung to the slippery back longer than any other contestant. Inevitably, she finally fell off, landing on her butt in the dirt. Kevin expected the hog to calm down, but it continued to snort and buck, spinning in circles, hard hooves flying in all directions. Kevin realized with horror that the little girl who was still sitting stunned in the dirt was directly in the path of the whirling ovine. Instantly, Kevin jumped the fence into the ring. The pig easily had more than 100 pounds on Kevin. Kevin reached out with his mind to get the pig to calm down, but the pig was hysterical and still headed for the girl. It wouldn't listen to Kevin. Kevin knew he only had moments to act. He couldn't use his levels against a creature without levels of his own, but he still had his superior martial arts training and almost superhuman reflexes. Kevin went into a rolling dive, coming up between the hog and the girl. The hog plunged forward. Kevin shot his hand out and jammed his finger and thumb into the pig's sensitive nostrils. He clamped down on the slippery tissues, and the hog immediately dropped to the ground. The girl's parents raced out into the ring and snatched the girl away. Kevin kept his focus on the hog. It kept twitching and snorting, very agitated despite its stillness. Kevin tried again to reach the pig's mind. The pig was still too hysterical for reasonable communication, but at least Kevin could get some sense of its thoughts.
Evil from the sky. Oh, such evil from the sky. This is all. This is the end. My poor humans, my poor friends. Evil from the sky. Evil from the sky.
The sense of the words ran through the pig's mind over and over. Kevin couldn't help looking up. The geodesic dome over the World's Fair was still perfectly clear. The day had been sunny before, but afternoon thunderclouds must have moved in. All above was now churning skies. A hotel at the edge of the fairgrounds cast a long shadow over the ring where Kevin was holding the pig still. Perched atop the hotel, a lone figure, black against the rolling sky, seemed to be looking down at the city, at the World's Fair, and even at Kevin in particular. All the hair on the back of Kevin's neck stood up. Although he couldn't place the figure, it was strangely and alarmingly familiar. After many challenges and setbacks, Lily opened the Chicago World's Fair, which was set to be the most successful event in the city's history. However, Kevin received a warning of evil from the sky from one of the livestock animals and got a glimpse of a menacing figure watching the fair from the top of a nearby skyscraper. Kevin left the livestock contest and raced to the top of the hotel. He called Brett Stewart, leader of the Myriads, Wayne Ford and Harley Shepard of Chicago's Healing Arts School, and Troy Evans, whom Kevin had lured from the evil side when he first battled the Pinnacle, and whom he later put in charge of his growing Radiance group. Kevin asked all to meet him at the fairgrounds as a backup. But when they arrived, the roof of the hotel was empty and there was no sign of the figure Kevin had spied there. He told the others of what he saw and the warning he had picked up from the panicked pig. The men all exchanged glances. For a moment, Kevin worried they didn't believe him, but Wayne cleared his throat nervously.
I don't know what the pig was referring to, but we've recently had some disturbing reports about the Pinnacle. They came in today, and I was hoping for more details before I reported them to you, Kevin.
Kevin clenched his jaw. Tell me now, Wayne. Don't leave anything out.
Okay.
Wayne took a deep breath.
As you know, the Pinnacle has been plotting to take over the world and enslave the Foundation for quite some time.
Kevin nodded. Enslaving the Foundation meant placing every man, woman, and child who wasn't part of the Pinnacle in chains and forcing them to do the bidding of the evil organization. This included Kevin, his friends and family, and especially his beloved Lily and their future children. Kevin had been thwarting the Pinnacle at every turn, but had yet to defeat them definitively. You dealt the Pinnacle a savage blow when you traveled to their base of operations, Apex Island, and pushed back one of their uprisings, Harley added.
But unfortunately, that was only a setback for the Pinnacle.
Wayne took up the narrative again.
After you returned from the Upper Realm with the knowledge that the Pinnacle was planning to make another move for world domination, we tried to get any information about their current leadership that we could. It was extremely difficult, but we got the sense that after a long internal battle, there was finally a new leader in place.
Kevin immediately latched on to one word in Wayne's last speech. Was a new leader? Did something happen to them already?
Yes, there seems to have been some kind of hostile takeover by an outsider. The change in leadership was swift, ruthless, and absolute.
Who's the outsider who took over? Kevin demanded. That person must have been incredibly strong to wrest power so quickly.
He must be incredibly evil, Brett added.
Brett Stewart had been warning Kevin about the rise of the Pinnacle for some time. Kevin had to go to his old friend to eat a fair portion of crow after he returned from the Upper Realm. Wayne, Harley, and Troy exchanged looks again.
We have no idea, Harley admitted. We've gone through a list of the usual suspects, but they're all accounted for or dead. Whoever took over the Pinnacle, well, he came out of nowhere, or at least that's how it seems.
I know you've been keeping Apex Island under surveillance, Kevin began. Apex Island was the Pinnacle's headquarters. The mysterious island was located in an obscure part of the Atlantic Ocean and almost impossible to find. But Kevin had found it. He had been there and disclosed the location to the others so that they could keep an eye on it.
We have, Wayne agreed. But it's been long-range surveillance, not close enough to get details of the Pinnacle's latest undertakings, but far enough to avoid detection.
Finding out who the Pinnacle's new leader is needs to be our top priority, Kevin decided. Tell your surveillance team to get a closer look and see if they can spot this new leader, even if it means the Pinnacle knows we've been keeping tabs on them.
I'll have them get on it right away,
Wayne promised. Kevin's mind was still reeling with questions about the Pinnacle's mysterious new leader as he showed Lily to their seats under the geodesic dome of the fair that evening for the premiere of Cleopatra, the Last Queen. Lily, lovely in her evening gown, looked around. Plush seats had been arranged in rows at this end of the fairgrounds, but there was no screen in sight. "How are we going to watch the movie?" Lily asked Kevin. "You'll see." Kevin gave a secret smile as the film star Madame Spatzel stepped onto the low dais in front of the seats. She wore a dazzling purple gown that made it look like she was being swallowed by a very amorous octopus. Her singer's voice needed no microphone as she projected over the crowd. "My fellow human beings, welcome to the world premiere of Cleopatra, the Last Queen. It should be the film's auteur making this speech, but he's far too modest to stand up here and tell you what a magnificent treat you're in for." Chuckles came from the crowd as they looked at Kevin. Lily smiled at him, looking pleased and proud. "Cleopatra, the Last Queen, needs no further introduction," Madame Spatzel continued, "other than to say it has been formatted to fit the screen and most definitely not edited for content." Jericho, the Hollywood stuntman who became one of Kevin's protégés, shot Kevin a look from a nearby seat. He had been with Kevin when the first attempt to show the Cleopatra film to a crowd had nearly gone disastrously wrong. The Pinnacle had interfered with that screening of the movie, interspersing subliminal symbols and messages between film frames. The subliminal symbols and messages resulted in anyone seeing the movie becoming the Pinnacle's slave. Kevin had only realized what was happening and resisted through his superior mental strength. Kevin had checked the film right before this premiere and was sure the Pinnacle hadn't been able to tamper with it. That was a good thing given all of the most powerful people in Chicago, along with a significant portion of the population, were about to see it. Madame Spatzel took her seat and the lights dimmed around them. Lily turned this way and that. "But where is the screen, Kevin? Is it going to rise up out of the ground? Is it going to be wheeled in?" Kevin put an arm around her and passed her some popcorn. "Just wait," he whispered as the opening score began. Suddenly, the inside of the geodesic dome lit up with a close-up of Madame Spatzel's face. Suddenly, the experimental singer, actress, and performing artist's face was several stories high. The crowd oohed and awed. You're projecting the movie on the superglass dome?" Lily squeaked in surprise. "Not on it, through it," Kevin replied. "Anyone with a view of the dome outside will also be able to watch the movie. We're broadcasting the soundtrack on one of Williams Media's local radio stations so they can hear it as well." "Just like an old drive-in movie," Lily exclaimed. The score swelled as Madame Spatzel sang the movie's theme song. "The surround sound system is excellent," Lily raved further. Kevin waved his hands around Lily and himself. Lily saw images projected through the dome on all sides of them. As the image on the screen switched to rolling dunes and sun, she got a whiff of blazing sand and desert air. A hot breeze puffed by her, tugging at her hair and clothes. "It's the most immersive cinema experience ever," Kevin informed Lily. "Surround sound, surround visuals, weather cues, olfactory experiences, and all." "Kevin, you're amazing," Lily whispered right before she became absorbed in the story of the ambitious and beautiful queen. There wasn't a peep from anyone in the entire audience for the length of the film. Outside, Chicago also fell silent. People driving by the fairgrounds pulled over and watched the story unfold on the outside of the geodesic dome. Pedestrians forgot their destinations and sat down on sidewalks to watch. Anyone with a view that included even a glimpse of the dome left their phones, televisions, and dinners to stand at their windows where they could take in the movie. The silence continued until the last credit rolled by. Kevin looked at Lily. Tears rolled down her face, but she was also smiling. Right then, Kevin didn't care what the rest of the world thought about Cleopatra, the Last Queen. The time, energy, anxiety, and expense of the production had all been worth it to put that look on his beloved Lily's face. And then the crowd roared behind them. Dimly from the other side of the dome, Kevin's excellent hearing picked up on half of Chicago, adding their voices to the cheer. People swamped Kevin, eager to shake his hand and tell them how much they loved the movie. Madame Spatzel accepted praise and adulation with her own brand of immodest equilibrium. The movie critic from the Chicago Times forced her way through the crowd around Kevin, slinging elbows and spike heels like a veteran brawler until she was face to face with Kevin. Everyone fell silent to hear her assessment of the movie's quality. "Kevin Williams," she boomed out, "you have single-handedly guaranteed this will be the most successful movie and World's Fair ever." The crowd cheered their agreement. Lily hugged Kevin and he grinned, right until he saw Wayne Ford, Harley Shepard, and Troy Evans pushing through the crowd with grim expressions. Kevin knew they weren't coming to congratulate him on the movie's success. Kevin broke away from the crowd to confer with the three men. "What is it?" Kevin demanded. "What happened?"
"It's absolutely incredible," Troy warned, shaking his head. "It's the most disturbing part about Pinnacle yet," Wayne added.
Kevin raised his eyebrows. More disturbing than a mastermind evil genius arising from nowhere to single-handedly take control of the most powerful fanatical group of megalomaniacs on the planet.
"Yes, more disturbing," Troy nodded. "Before we knew where all of those fanatical megalomaniacs were, Apex Island."
"Are you saying the Pinnacle has left Apex Island?"
"Not exactly." Troy shuffled his feet and looked uncertain. "As far as we know, the Pinnacle is still on Apex Island, but a heavy fog had come down 3 days ago, and our long-range surveillance had lost visual contact with the island. The fog cleared this evening, and the whole island was gone."
"Gone?" Kevin echoed dumbly.
"The entire island. Kevin, it's disappeared."
Right after the world premiere of Cleopatra the Last Queen, Kevin received some disturbing news about the Pinnacle. Their island headquarters, Apex Island, had disappeared from the Atlantic Ocean, and no one had any idea what had happened to it. After Wayne Ford, Harley Shepard, and Troy Evans had delivered the shocking news that Apex Island, headquarters of the powerful Pinnacle organization, threatening to enslave the entire Foundation, had disappeared from its mysterious location in the Atlantic Ocean, Kevin decided to forego the Cleopatra premiere after-party. Cleopatra the Last Queen had been an unqualified success, but its star, Madame Spatzel, was more than up to handling the buckets of adulation and praise that critics and moviegoers wanted to fling in their direction. Kevin began making calls to Brett Stewart, the head of the Myriad Freedom Fighters, updating him and putting everyone on high alert. He also notified Stanley Cooper of the Reaper Squad and Agent Karen Stone of Interpol to see if their resources could shed any light on what had happened to Apex Island. Nobody had any immediate answers, but they all promised to put their best people on it. But by the next afternoon, Kevin had no more answers than when he had started. And by now he even had a few new problems. "What do you mean nobody wants to use the teleportation equipment?" he asked in exasperation when the exhibit's MC, Carnival Barker, approached him apologetically. "We sold hundreds of VIP packages so that international guests can teleport directly home instead of spending hours and hours on planes and in taxis."
"I know," the Barker said in apologetic tone. "But the World's Fair is such a success that no one who bought a VIP package wants to go home. They all want to stay until the end of the fair.
The locals see that no one is using the teleportation equipment and start to wonder if something is wrong with it. Kevin returned to the teleportation exhibit to consider the problem. There was a large crowd gathered around the exhibit, but no one was actually lining up to use it. They reminded Kevin of kids gathering around a high dive board at a pool. Everybody wanted to try it, but nobody wanted to be the first. The barker eyed Kevin. "Maybe if you let yourself be teleported, Mr. Williams, the rest of the crowd would think it was safe. I could send you anywhere you like, back to your home, your office, or even just across the fairgrounds." No, that won't convince the crowd, Kevin decided. They need to see someone not just disappear but also reappear so that they know that it's safe. He snagged a weary-looking Chicago hot dog vendor with an empty tray. The main hot dog stand was directly across the plaza from the teleportation exhibit, and the vendor, already exhausted from hours on his feet, was sagging as he went to pick up another tray of hot dogs. "Excuse me, would you be willing to help us demonstrate the teleportation exhibit by letting us teleport you across the plaza back to your stand?" Kevin asked. "But the hot dog stand is only 100 feet away," the vendor pointed out. "I know, the stand is in clear view of everyone around the teleportation exhibit, so everyone will know you got to your destination safely." The vendor considered. 100 feet less on my feet is 100 feet less. My dogs are already barking, and I don't mean the ones on the tray." "Thank you," Kevin said. "As a bonus for volunteering, you can have a free teleport home every night after work." The vendor lit up. "Really? That's great. And everyone else on the subway will thank you too. No one likes the smell of me after a 12-hour hot dog shift." Kevin, the barker, and the vendor all took their places on stage. The barker started his spiel touting the wonders of teleportation. "Save time, save money, save the experience of airplane food. And teleportation isn't just for long distances. Imagine skipping rush hour and public transportation to arrive back at your house in under a second. Home is just a blink away." The barker reeled off. "No distance is too great, but no distance is too small." Kevin nodded to the hot dog vendor, who then stepped into the teleportation machine. The vendor only looked slightly nervous as he gripped his tray. The barker dialed in the coordinates of the main hot dog stand across the plaza, and the vendor disappeared. The crowd gasped in astonishment and turned to look at the hot dog stand. Sure enough, the vendor was now standing beside it with his tray. He looked slightly surprised at the swift trip, but he smiled and waved. The crowd roared with appreciation. Suddenly, people were queuing up to be teleported all over the fair. The barker smiled at Kevin. "Thanks, Mr. Williams. I can't tell you what a help you've been." Meanwhile, Kevin's mother-in-law, Dorothy, was in a bad mood. Although this was not uncommon, it was particularly galling for Dorothy to be in a bad mood when she couldn't share it with anyone else. Everyone at the Chicago World's Fair was having a wonderful time. Although her daughter Lily, the mayor of Chicago, had made the World's Fair happen nearly single-handedly and in her delicate condition, it was Kevin's name that was on everyone's lips. Kevin directed that showy piece of cinema they had screened last night. Kevin discovered the resizing ray. Kevin. It made Dorothy sick. She needed to find someone who would understand and empathize with how she felt, or at least would keep his trap shut while she vented her spleen about her supposedly super-perfect son-in-law. Dorothy immediately thought of her husband, Oliver. Oliver was an international businessman who was, for once, in town, and thus he was able to see the World's Fair. Dorothy knew he was on business calls from the mayor's mansion all afternoon, but he could delay the calls for 3 or 4 hours to listen to Dorothy vent. The only problem was that it would take hours to get through the traffic around the fairgrounds to get back to the mayor's mansion. Dorothy's mood darkened further to apocalyptic levels. Just then, Dorothy heard the voice of one of the barkers cut through the noise of the crowd. "That's right, folks. We can teleport you anywhere in the world in a matter of moments. Across the world or across town. It's up to you. Just remember there's no return ticket. But hey, that's no problem. As the rock star said, it's okay to let yourself go. as long as you can get yourself back." That sounded exactly like what Dorothy needed. She eyed the long crowd snaking away from the exhibit. No way was she waiting in that line. Waiting in line was for other people. Wielding her oversized designer handbag like a shield, she pushed and shoved her way to the front of the crowd.
"Step aside! Out of the way! VIP coming through!"
The crowd muttered and squawked in outrage. Dorothy ignored them and kept pushing to the front of the line.
"Mother of the Mayor coming through! Make way! Mother of the Mayor, I said!"
The barker looked surprised when Dorothy shoved a family of 4 out of her way to get to the front of the line. "Ma'am, you need to wait your turn," the barker told her.
"I'm the mother of the Mayor, Lily Williams," Dorothy declared. "It's imperative that I teleport immediately. It's city business."
She lied with absolutely no guilt. The barker looked like he wanted to argue, but then suddenly smiled. "Of course, if it's city business, please step right this way." Nose in the air, Dorothy accepted his unexpected capitulation as her due. He scanned her visitor's badge into the machine for their records, and Dorothy stepped inside. She sent a quick text to Oliver letting him know she'd be home momentarily.
"Don't you know the location of where I want to go?"
she suddenly remembered to ask the barker. "Nope," the barker replied as he pushed the button that started the teleportation device. Dorothy opened her mouth to argue, but in the blink of an eye the World's Fair disappeared, and she was suddenly in a new place. Her head briefly swam with the sudden change as her brain struggled to catch up with the change in her reality. The first thing she noticed was that it was hot. Very hot and very dry. The air tasted like one of the scenes from Kevin's silly little immersive movie. Dorothy blinked and looked around. She definitely wasn't in the mayor's mansion. She wasn't even in Chicago anymore. She glanced about. All around her was a barbed wire fence that funneled into a large tent with thick canvas sides. Beyond the fence was a wasteland of the desert with a few saguaro cacti standing like sentinels. Suddenly, someone poked her in the back, forcing her to stumble forward. She opened her mouth to protest such rude behavior, not to mention complain about the obvious error that the teleportation operator had made. She turned, ready to unleash one of her most scathing verbal attacks, but the words died in her dry throat. The person who had just poked her was wearing desert camouflage from head to foot. Their face was shielded with a mask and desert camo. In fact, the only part of their gear that wasn't camo was the very large black assault rifle the person held in his hands. And it was pointed right at Dorothy. While Kevin's team raced to find answers about Apex Island, the Pinnacle headquarters that had disappeared from its location in the Atlantic Ocean, Dorothy tried to use the teleportation device to leave the World's Fair, only to wind up in the middle of a desert with a gun to her head. Dorothy stared down the barrel of an assault rifle.
"Move,"
the person holding the rifle barked. Though momentarily startled, Dorothy's sense of dignity and outrage quickly helped her recover.
"Don't you take that tone of voice with me, young man, or young lady as the case may be."
The figure was clad in head-to-toe desert camo, and even the attacker's face shielded from the desert's glare.
"Move now,"
the soldier barked again at Dorothy.
"I'm not moving an inch until someone explains to me how I ended up here and not back at the mayor's mansion like I—"
Dorothy's rant was cut off when the family of 4 whom she had cut in front of in line to use the teleportation machine suddenly came crashing down on her. Dorothy was knocked to the ground and the family stumbled about trying to keep their balance. The father looked around and blinked. "This isn't the Motel 7 up by the airport." Dorothy rolled out from under his left foot, sending the man tumbling to the ground.
"Sharp as a bowling ball, aren't you?" Dorothy growled. "I was here first. Wait your turn to lodge a complaint."
She turned back to the gun-wielding person.
"As I was saying,"
Dorothy tried again.
"Move,"
the person with the gun barked for the 3rd time. Before Dorothy could respond, 2 more people landed on top of her, a couple from Japan who looked around and blinked before exclaiming to each other.
"What kind of desert only gets rain made up of tourists?"
Dorothy grumbled as she got to her feet and tried to beat the dust from her clothes with her oversized designer handbag. "Sorry about this. Sorry." A woman in a very floppy sun hat chirped as she hurried from the tent. The barbed wire fence surrounding Dorothy and the other recent arrivals funneled them into the huge tent. It was the only man-made structure visible. The woman had to tip her head back so they could see her wide smile under her hat, as she continued to apologize in English and even in Japanese. "We're so sorry. There was an itty-bitty teeny-tiny miscalculation with the teleportation machine, but don't worry, we're going to make it right and send you on to your final destination." "What if we don't want to risk another of those miscalculations?" the mother of the family of four demanded. "Then we'll send you back first class and compensate you handsomely for your trouble. We're so sorry about this. If you would just step this way." The woman in the sun hat motioned to the tent. "Once you're in the tent, we can get you all sorted," she promised. "Let's get you all out of the sun and into the air conditioning, okay? Right this way. We have ice cream and champagne, too." "Ice cream!" the kids exclaimed and ran for the tent.
"What kind of champagne?"
Dorothy asked with suspicion. "Dom Perignon, of course. Nothing but the best because we're so sorry about this little mix-up." The woman continued apologetically. "And we even have a little video for you to watch while you wait for your zap home."
"Well, in that case..."
Dorothy elbowed her way past the two children in her hurry to get to the tent first. That night, Kevin stayed at the fairgrounds until the fair shut down. He watched a few of the stragglers leave Alma's last-minute replacement exhibit, a haunted house that must be more than worth the price of admission if the dazed looks on the patrons were anything to go by. Kevin's phone rang and he was startled to see that the call was from his father-in-law, Oliver. Kevin could count on one hand the number of times Oliver had spoken to him in the last year, so this must be important.
"Have you seen Dorothy?"
Oliver demanded as soon as Kevin answered. "No, I've been having a great day at the fair," Kevin responded. Oliver huffed in annoyance.
"Dorothy was at the fair. She sent me a text saying she was teleporting back to the mayor's mansion hours ago, but she never showed up."
"And you're just calling now? If Dorothy got a teleport home, she should have arrived instantaneously," Kevin explained.
"Well, maybe I was hoping she got caught up in something like reorganizing the pantry or shaming the gardeners because the grass was too green."
Oliver grumbled. He loved his wife, but he also didn't fool himself about her starchy personality.
"But she definitely never came back here. I wouldn't have even called now, but Lily is getting worried."
Kevin sighed. "In that case, I'll see if I can find out where Dorothy went." The last thing Kevin wanted was for Lily to be worried about anything, especially this close to her due date. Maybe she decided to be teleported somewhere else.
"Like maybe Neptune,"
Kevin heard Oliver grumble before the older man hung up. Kevin had access to all of the fair's exhibits. He signed into the teleportation systems logs and searched for Dorothy's name. She was logged in as one of their passengers from that afternoon. Kevin checked the destination coordinates and found that instead of longitude and latitude, Dorothy's endpoint was only listed as default. Kevin remembered setting up the teleportation's default settings before the fair. Just in case there were any mix-up or issues in the split second a person was being teleported, the computer would safely send the person to the fair's main office. But if Dorothy had accidentally been sent to the fair's main office, where was she now? Kevin had a sudden mental picture of Dorothy berating the main office staff until they were all crying on the floor, too traumatized to perform their duties or even unlock the front doors to let Dorothy go free. It was an extreme scenario, but then Dorothy was an extreme mother-in-law. The main offices were more than a mile away across the fairground. The fastest way to get there would be for Kevin to teleport himself. Kevin had teleported halfway around the world. He had no concerns about teleporting across the fairgrounds. He set the machine and stepped inside. Kevin instantly knew something was wrong even before he opened his eyes. The air was too cool and dry. There was a hint of breeze against his skin and his keds gritted against the sand underfoot. Kevin looked around. This was not the World Fair's main office. He was in an area of desert fenced in with barbed wire. The area was funneled into a large black tent. He could see the glow of lights beyond the tent and hear voices in the distance, but that was it. There was no one else around, but Kevin could make out hundreds of sets of footprints in the dirt, all heading toward the tent. He spied something in the dirt. It was the zipper tab from a designer handbag. Kevin recognized the logo as one of Dorothy's favorite overpriced companies. He was sure that she had also been teleported here, probably with a lot of the other fairgoers, if the number of footprints was anything to go by. But where was she now? Cautiously, Kevin crept toward the tent. All his senses were on high alert as he slipped inside. The tent was dark and deserted. Rows of chairs were set up in front of a screen, but there was little else to see here. Kevin kept going to the far side of the tent. He peeked through the flaps. A few banks of lights lit up half a dozen long, low buildings. Kevin could tell the voices he heard were coming from the buildings. Then he spied two people in desert camouflage standing under one of the lights. They both held assault rifles at the ready. As Kevin watched, a couple left one of the buildings. They both wore souvenir hats that read Chicago's World Fair. Kevin was sure they had also come here via the teleportation system. The people in camo called the tourists over sharply. Kevin braced himself, sure the tourists were being held prisoner. But to Kevin's astonishment, the tourists spoke a few words with the people in camo, laughed, waved, and then went on to another of the buildings. Kevin was taking no chances that the armed guards in camo would be as friendly to him. He snuck around by a circuitous route and peered into the windows of the buildings looking for Dorothy. Several of the buildings were set up as barracks with crowded rows of bunk beds. Few were occupied at the moment. Kevin continued to the next building. This one was a mess hall. People ate at long tables, laughing and chatting. None of them seemed to be under duress or even upset. Then Kevin spied Dorothy sitting by herself at the end of a long table eating ice cream. Fortunately, there was a door near her and it wasn't even locked. Kevin slipped inside and slid onto the bench beside Dorothy. "Don't worry, Dorothy," he muttered to her, scanning the room for danger. "I'm here to rescue you. Don't make any sound or show that you're startled to see me." "Kevin?" Dorothy blinked. And then she smiled at him. Smiled at him! Kevin's sense of something being very wrong only got worse when Dorothy threw her arms around him and hugged him with delight. "It's so good to see you!" Kevin scrambled back and took another look at her. Yes, this was definitely his mother-in-law, Dorothy, but she was acting so wildly out of character Kevin was alarmed. "What happened?" Kevin finally gasped out. "Who did this to you?" Dorothy only smiled back and ate another spoonful of ice cream. "I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin, but I'm glad you're here." Kevin looked around the room for some sign, some explanation of what had turned his harridan of a mother-in-law into Susie Sunshine. And then he saw it. Hanging over the mess hall was a banner with an inverted pyramid symbol. He knew the emblem well. It belonged to the Pinnacle. Dorothy disappeared after using the teleportation system. Kevin used the system himself in an effort to track her down. The teleportation system sent Kevin to an armed camp in the middle of the desert, run by the Pinnacle. Kevin stared in horror at the emblem of the Pinnacle hanging over the mess hall. Beside him, his radically changed mother-in-law, Dorothy, went back to happily eating her ice cream. Hundreds of other people were also happily eating ice cream and chatting with each other in the mess hall. By Kevin's estimation, almost everyone who had used the teleportation system at the Chicago World's Fair had ended up here instead of at their intended destination. Obviously, Pinnacle had sabotaged the teleportation system. Kevin suspected he knew why none of the misdirected travelers were upset about arriving in an armed camp instead of where they expected to be, but he interrogated Dorothy to be sure. Dorothy," Kevin began. "What happened when you first arrived, here?" "Well, at first, I wasn't very happy about it." Dorothy laughed, but for once it wasn't directed at Kevin. It was like she was laughing at her own silliness. "But the activities director assured me that it was just a little tiny error and I'd be sent back to the mayor's mansion very soon." "And then what happened?" Kevin prompted. "I was shown into a lovely tent with air conditioning," Dorothy continued. I was given refreshments and a little movie to watch while they made arrangements for me, and then... A blank look came over Dorothy's face. And then... Suddenly her face brightened. I decided I was much happier here and I wanted to stay, she finished. And you weren't alone in this tent, Kevin confirmed. No, there were all these other tourists there. Dorothy said the word tourists in the same tone some people would say, dirty maggots. But they watched the movie too, and now we're all the best of friends. Dorothy beamed out over the room with a general goodwill that was entirely unlike her. Then she turned a bright smile on Kevin. It almost made him flinch. Just like you and me, Kevin. She gave him another happy hug. Kevin felt his world tilt on its axis. We're all now one big happy family under the pinnacle, Dorothy declared. We all serve the pinnacle now. Kevin understood what had happened. Many weeks before, the pinnacle had inserted subliminal messages in an early screening of Cleopatra the Last Queen. The messages induced a fanatical loyalty to the evil organization to anyone who saw them. Kevin had realized the Pinnacle's plan and thwarted the effect by replacing the Pinnacle's images with the reverse concepts. But obviously the Pinnacle had continued to use the same technique with their captive audience at this camp. Kevin was sure this was just the first step in the Pinnacle's plan to enslave the entire Foundation and bring the whole world under the control of the Pinnacle's mysterious new leader. Dorothy and the others would happily work, fight, and die to serve their new masters without ever thinking of themselves. Kevin's mind raced. He was wildly outnumbered against foes without levels, which meant Kevin couldn't use his levels against them if the entire camp rose up against him. Not that Kevin wanted to hurt any of them. They were all innocent victims of the Pinnacle's brainwashing. He didn't have the tools with him to reverse the brainwashing either. He glanced at his phone and saw he had no signal. Of course, the Pinnacle would be jamming all communications in and out of camp. Kevin would have to escape the camp and return with reinforcements. He glanced around the mess hall. There were no guards here and only a few outside. That made sense. With everybody under the Pinnacle's sway, no one would try to escape. Kevin could easily sneak out. Unfortunately, he couldn't sneak out on his own. He looked over at Dorothy and for a moment thought about leaving her here. His heart warmed at the thought before he pushed it away. His darling wife Lily was worried about her mother and Kevin couldn't stand to have Lily worried. Kevin would have to take Dorothy with him, and she wouldn't be happy about it. Kevin had to wait almost until dawn before he saw his chance to escape with Dorothy. He saw the guards prepared to change shifts and quickly went to where Dorothy was sleeping in one of the bunk beds in the barracks. Kevin grabbed her, clamping a hand over her mouth. Be quiet, he hissed when she woke, his mind racing. The Pinnacle has sent us on a secret mission. Kevin finally lied. We have to leave immediately and silently, he stressed. Dorothy nodded. Dawn was just turning the desert rosy as Kevin led her to the camp's motor pool. Kevin directed her into the back of an open Jeep and got to work hot wiring it. Put your seatbelt on, Kevin ordered. For once, Dorothy obeyed, strapping herself into the back seat. Kevin reached out and with a swift twist of his wrist, broke the clasp, effectively locking Dorothy into the seatbelt. Kevin, Dorothy whined. Stop it! It's too tight. I can't ride like this. I can't breathe. Then how are you still talking? Kevin grumbled as he turned back to hot wiring the Jeep. But Dorothy's complaints got louder and louder. Shh! I told you we have to get out of here silently. Do you hear that? A guard spoke from around the corner. No one's supposed to be around now. It's just us leaving on our secret mission, Dorothy called out smugly. Kevin bit back a curse as two armed guards rounded the corner. Stop, one yelled. That's Kevin Williams, the other guard yelled. He's not one of us, he's the enemy of the Pinnacle. Enemy of the Pinnacle! Dorothy screeched and lunged for Kevin with her nails just as the guards opened fire. Kevin ducked both assaults, got the Jeep running, and peeled out of the motor pool. Dorothy continued to screech and scream at him, but the seatbelt held her in the back seat. As long as Kevin leaned forward, she couldn't claw his neck with her pointed nails. Even the Jeep's engine could not drown out the noise of her caterwauling. Kevin's hearing was just too sharp. You won't get away with this, Kevin. The Pinnacle will stop you. They'll come for me. They won't let you get away with this. I already have, Kevin finally shot back. I sabotaged the rest of the motor pool last night, so no one at the camp is coming after us. Dorothy laughed derisively. They don't need a motor pool to come after you. The Pinnacle is everywhere. They'll come for you like evil from the sky. Dorothy's last words were almost exactly like the warning Kevin had gotten from one of the livestock contestants at the fair. What did you say? Dorothy, what do you mean by that? Suddenly, the day which had barely begun darkened as if the sun had gone behind a storm cloud. But that was impossible. The desert sky was painfully clear. But when Kevin glanced up, he saw something was indeed blocking the sun. It was a huge mass denser than any cloud. Surrounding it were tiny specks that swarmed like flies, getting closer and larger by the moment. Kevin looked back. Suddenly, a man dressed in black with a Pinnacle insignia on his chest was standing on the back of the Jeep. Where the heck did you come from? Kevin exclaimed in surprise. The man laughed and pointed back at the shape that blotted out the sun. We are the Pinnacle, the man proclaimed. We are the evil from the sky. Kevin looked back and realized the dots around the shape weren't flies or even birds, they were people. And Kevin's senses told him each and every one was a leveled warrior. Somehow, some way, all of the Pinnacle's warriors had learned how to fly. Kevin flung a hand backward and unleashed a leveled blast of energy at the Pinnacle warrior on the back of the Jeep. He scored a direct hit and the man tumbled off the back. But before Kevin could even look away, the man soared back upwards, laughing and easily keeping pace with the Jeep. Kevin sent another blast, which the warrior dodged midair before taking his place again on the back of the Jeep. But Kevin's next blast hit him. You can't fight us all, Kevin Williams, the warrior yelled as he was again knocked off the Jeep. Kevin glanced up and saw more flying warriors closing in. Kevin sent more blasts of leveled power at them, but they swooped and soared through the air, dodging all his attacks. Kevin's mind raced, knowing he'd need to stretch his abilities to the limit to escape these flying foes. Since achieving level 9, he'd begun developing several new abilities, speaking to plants, communicating with the dead, and a small level of telekinesis. The first two abilities would be no help to him here. That only left telekinesis. So far, Kevin could only move small objects and not very skillfully. But Kevin realized that may be all he needed to do if he could do enough of it at once. As a dozen warriors swooped closer, Kevin leaned harder on the accelerator. He swerved the Jeep into the soft shoulder of the road, kicking up huge clouds of dust. Then, with his leveled abilities, Kevin reached out with his mind and sent those clouds of dust higher and wider. Dorothy's continual caterwauling cut off into a coughing fit. Kevin narrowed his eyes to slits against the grit. He channeled every ounce of his abilities into kicking more and more of the dust higher into the air. The day went dim and more particles filled the air, swirling around them. Kevin felt inertia begin to take over as the swirling air currents, pushed by his mind, took up a momentum of their own. He could hear cries of pain and confusion from the warriors as the howling winds knocked them off course and sent dirt and debris into their faces. An hour later, Kevin was almost dead from exhaustion and from exerting his abilities. Unable to keep up the sandstorm, he let go, and the air around the Jeep cleared as they rolled to a stop. Kevin wiped the grit from his eyes and looked around. The skies were empty with no signs of the leveled warriors or the strange object that they had come from. In the back seat, Dorothy was so covered in dust she looked like a mummy. But she gave a weak cough and Kevin knew she was still alive. He swallowed a recovery pill from the stash in his trusty satchel and waited for it to take effect. By nightfall, Kevin made it back to the mayor's mansion in Chicago. He slumped through the doors with a struggling Dorothy over his shoulder. He had to drug her to get her on the private plane back to the city, and unfortunately it had worn off before they got home. "Kevin, what on earth are you doing to my mother?" Lily cried in alarm as soon as she saw them both still filthy and bedraggled. Kevin sighed. He had a lot of explaining to do. After locating his hypnotized mother-in-law deep within a Pinnacle conversion camp on the Arizona border, Kevin dragged Dorothy back to Chicago, kicking and screaming, to try to reclaim her broken mind from the evil forces of the Pinnacle. Kevin pulled his mother-in-law down the steps toward the pet supply closet located in the basement of the mayor's mansion.
"You can't defeat the Pinnacle!" Dorothy shouted with crazed enthusiasm. "A storm is coming, a dark cloud that will consume everything you know and love. Give in to the darkness, or be consumed by it."
Kevin pushed Dorothy into a large metal dog crate in the corner of the small room and slammed the door shut.
"Release me," Dorothy ordered. "Release me this moment or suffer the full wrath of the Pinnacle. Release me! Release me!"
Dorothy pulled wildly at the kennel door. It held tight against her tugs. Kevin tried to get through to his mother-in-law. Her eyes were oddly vacant but laced with bright golden specks, giving her the air of something otherworldly. "Dorothy, listen to me. If you're still in there somewhere, it's Kevin speaking. I'm going to save you, I promise. Just hold on. Do you hear me? Hold on." Dorothy swiped at Kevin's face with her jagged fingernails, but Kevin's reflexes were too quick. He instinctively stepped back, avoiding his mother-in-law's surprise attack. Dorothy continued to swing her hands wildly like a wild animal desperate to get free. She growled and hissed in an almost inhumane way.
"We'll kill you," Dorothy warned. "We'll kill you all. There's nothing you can do to stop us. There is no hope. No hope for anyone who dares to defy the Pinnacle. No hope at all."
Kevin sighed and then exited the room. He reappeared a moment later, pushing an old television cart. Dorothy suddenly calmed, her curiosity overpowering her blind rage. What was Kevin up to?
What? What is that?"
Dorothy probed with keen suspicion. Kevin grinned. "Hope," he stated firmly. He plugged in the television and pressed play. Images suddenly appeared on the screen. They were symbols that were the opposite of what Dorothy had been forced to watch inside the Pinnacle conversion camp. Her face went white as she realized what she was watching.
"No! No! Turn it off! Turn it off!"
Dorothy commanded, but Kevin didn't listen. He just continued to let the images play on a loop, over and over again until they sank into Dorothy's thick skull.
"You can't fight the darkness!" Dorothy yelled. "You can't defeat the Pinnacle!"
Kevin had dealt with the Pinnacle's attempts at mind control before, and had luckily worked out a system of images that could deprogram any zombified victim of their wicked conversion therapy. Kevin had saved the images on his phone and was now using the television to project them onto a larger screen for his mother-in-law to process. "Just let it in, Dorothy," Kevin offered with a calm assuredness. "Just let in the light." Dorothy continued to scream as she fought off the visuals playing in front of her. She closed her eyes and turned away. She covered her ears and banged on the metal bars of her cage.
"How dare you!" she shouted. "You're a fool! Take me back to the desert camp! Take me back!"
But Dorothy couldn't fight off the images forever. Slowly, her fierce defenses began to fade and her mind began to settle. Kevin watched as his mother-in-law began to blink rapidly, the gold specks disappearing from her eyes more and more with every flutter of her lashes. And then, suddenly, Dorothy wasn't screaming anymore. She wasn't fighting. She was just staring forward at the TV screen, confused.
"Kevin?" she muttered quietly. What are you doing?"
"Dorothy!" Kevin exclaimed. "Dorothy, is that you? The real you?" Kevin quickly turned off the television and stepped over to his mother-in-law, who remained inside the dog kennel.
"Of course it's me,"
Dorothy replied, her natural demeanor returning.
Why am I in the dog's travel cage? What did you do to me?"
"What do you remember?" Kevin asked, still testing to see if Dorothy was fully back from the hypnosis.
What do I remember? Dorothy repeated. That my son-in-law is an idiot. What kind of question is that? Get me out of this thing.
Kevin smiled. Dorothy was back, and she was as condescending as ever. Do you remember Arizona? Kevin continued to inquire. Do you remember the Pinnacle Conversion Camp?
The what?
Dorothy pushed back angrily.
I don't know what you're talking about. I was at the World's Fair doing my best to support my Lily on a job well done. And then I got in line to try that silly teleportation machine you've been raving about, and then...
Dorothy's voice faded. She was shocked.
I don't remember.
Kevin unlocked the kennel door and helped his mother-in-law out of the cage. You were hypnotized, Kevin explained. But luckily I was able to restore your mind. You're back in the mayor's mansion. Lily is upstairs. You're safe. Dorothy processed everything Kevin had told her, humbled by the information. Her humility didn't last.
What do you want me to say? Dorothy barked. Thank you? Not a chance. Why do so many crazy things happen to people when they're around you? What a mess.
Kevin shook his head. It was hard to tell the difference between the zombified Dorothy and the regular Dorothy. Despite it all, Kevin was glad to have the old version of his mother-in-law back. Kevin opened the door to the pet supply closet to let Dorothy back upstairs when he suddenly spotted something new. On the ground beside Dorothy, a small handbook had fallen from her pocket. Kevin bent down to take a closer look.
What are you doing down there? Dorothy asked. What is that?
As Kevin took closer, he could make out the cover of a small black booklet. His eyes went wide as he read the simple title aloud. The Pillars of the Pinnacle, Kevin murmured. Back upstairs, Kevin paced back and forth as he flipped through the tiny pamphlet, doing his best to decode its secrets. Lily sat by the fire nearby, watching her husband with building concern. What is it, Kevin? Lily asked. What does it mean? It's the Pinnacle, Kevin explained. They're here. They're already here. A chill ran down Lily's spine. But how can that be? She responded. We would have seen them, wouldn't we? We would know. Kevin sat down next to his wife and took her hand. According to this pamphlet, they've been here the whole time, infiltrating the World's Fair, using it to their advantage. The World's Fair? Lily was at a loss. But how? Kevin did his best to explain. According to this pamphlet, they were using the teleportation machine to transfer innocent people to a Pinnacle conversion camp for brainwashing and further combat training, turning ordinary locals and tourists alike into mindless soldiers for the Pinnacle, an army. This is it, Lily. This is the day we've been dreading for so long, the day the Night King warned me about. The war with the Pinnacle has begun. Lily's expression sank. What do we do? Kevin squeezed his wife's hand with cool confidence. The only thing we can do, my love. We fight. Kevin sent out an urgent SOS. Time was of the essence. Kevin swiftly gathered his allies to his war room, just down the hall from his labs at Williams & Williams Pharmaceuticals' penthouse offices. Around the long conference table at the center of the war room, a dozen of Kevin's closest allies gathered together for the first time. Brett Stewart stood next to Dalton Steele. Yuki, Hiro, and Sasha were joined by Olivia Rafferty. Marcus and Kyle matched stares with Zane Barlow. Even the aged NASA pilot Zip Merlot made his way to Chicago to help. Kevin took center stage and addressed the group. Thank you all for being here.
Quite the party,
Dalton noted.
What's the occasion?
Kevin replied simply, the Pinnacle. A collective gasp escaped from the group. We knew this day would come, Olivia offered. What are they planning? Kevin shook his head. It's more than that. They're not planning anything. They're doing. They're here, now, using the Chicago World's Fair as ground zero for their attack on the Foundation. And it's up to all of us to stop them.
We're with you, Kevin, Brett exclaimed. You lead. We'll follow, Marcus offered.
I'll ride with you to the end, Kevin, Zip Merlot boasted joyfully. Kevin nodded in thanks. Thank you, my friends. I appreciate that. Truly. Now let's get started. Kevin took out a long map of the fairgrounds and unspooled it onto the conference table for everyone to see. What we know so far is that the Pinnacle has infiltrated the teleportation exhibit located here. Kevin pointed out the location on the map. They're using it to send anyone and everyone they can to a conversion camp in Arizona. They're building an army, Yuri noted. They already have an army, Hiro countered. You're both right, Kevin cut in. We know that the Pinnacle has been recruiting and training troops for generations. They'll be leveled and very dangerous. But by converting these innocent people into mindless minions, they're building a wall we can't just knock down. We can't just kill these people. It's not their fault that they were hypnotized. We have to save them. Bring back their minds before it's too late. I have a plan for that. But first, we have to shut down that teleportation exhibit before anyone else gets taken. But then we lose the element of surprise, Olivia noted. If we stop the teleportation machine now, they'll know we know that they're here. We should wait as long as we can.
Wait, Zane Barlow exclaimed. We can't wait. We should go down there and start punching faces.
Olivia's right, though, Kevin offered. For all we know, the Pinnacle has control of more than just the teleportation exhibit. The face-off machine went missing. The resizing ray is incredibly powerful, and there's unlimited rides and food vendors that could be playing into the Pinnacle's ultimate plan. Sasha looked over the map. When did you add the haunted house? The young apprentice pointed to the spooky amusement on the map. I don't remember a haunted house as one of the World's Fair's exhibits you told us about. It was a last-minute change, Kevin noted. When the face-off machine was stolen, we needed to fill the venue. Alma thought a good haunted house would be a nice addition, something to scare the kids. I understand not wanting to lose the element of surprise here in Chicago, Brett Stewart added. But you should let me send a team of Myriad warriors to that conversion camp in Arizona. They can send us new intel and make sure all those hypnotized tourists are safe. Kevin agreed. Good idea, Brett. Do it. As Kevin planned his next course of action, Brett ordered the Myriads to surround the Pinnacle camp in Arizona. The Myriads, always at the ready, were on their mission before Brett had finished with his orders. But as Brett's men approached the camp, they were met by an alarming sight. It was empty. The guards and hypnotized tourists were gone. All that remained was dust.
Where is everybody? The lead Myriad wondered to himself. Brett said this place should be crawling with the Pinnacle.
A second Myriad warrior suddenly had a realization.
They must have known we were coming. But how? The lead warrior replied.
They're ahead of us, another Myriad fighter offered. Pinnacle is one step ahead of us. The lead Myriad warrior's expression sank.
If that's true, then there's no telling where or when they might strike next. We're all sitting ducks.
After discovering that the Pinnacle had secretly infiltrated the World's Fair, Kevin set out to assemble a super team in order to fight back against the looming threat. At the same time, Lily remained at the mayor's mansion, doing her best to protect the city of Chicago and her unborn twins. Lily paced back and forth. She was 9 months pregnant with twins, but that surprisingly was not her most pressing issue. Lily was worried about Kevin and the threat of the Pinnacle. And she was worried about all the innocent people in her city whom she had vowed to protect when she became mayor. Dorothy poked her head into the doorway. Did Kevin really leave you here all alone again? You deserve so much better, Lily. Mother, stop, Lily replied with authority. She was tired of hearing her mother always putting Kevin down. Kevin is doing everything he can, not just for me, but for you too. For all of us. Dorothy was caught off guard by her daughter's firm response. I didn't mean to upset you. I was just saying. Enough! Lily shouted even stronger than before. If you don't have anything nice to say about Kevin, then don't say anything at all. Isn't that what you taught me when I was a little girl? Kevin is my husband, my life. We're in this together. So when you insult him, you insult me, too. Dorothy was at a total loss. I apologize. With that simple reply, Dorothy retreated out of view, defeated. Rachel stepped into the kitchen a moment later. Is now a bad time? Lily pulled herself together. No, Rachel, come in, please. If now is a bad time, I can always come back, Rachel offered. Lily shook her head. No, great timing. What's up? Rachel stepped into the kitchen. Well, you asked me to look into any new irregularities being reported from the World's Fair. Lily nodded, curious. That's right. And did you find any? Rachel placed a massive file folder on the kitchen table ahead. Yes, lots. The more I looked into it, the worse it got. Oh, no. Lily opened the file folder and dug into the information as Rachel continued. People have been calling into the mayor's office, Rachel explained. We've gotten emails and letters from thousands of people. Some have been complaining about family members going missing. The teleportation machine, Lily noted with a sigh. That's right, Rachel replied. But there's so much more. People have been reporting family members coming home with concussions. Concussions? Lily repeated, confused. That's what the people thought. They had family members acting strangely, Rachel noted. I tracked all the complaints wondering if there could be something in the food, but there was no connection. In fact, the only thing connecting all of these people was the haunted house. The haunted house? Lily didn't understand. Why would that have any effect on anyone, besides scaring little kids? I don't know, Rachel offered, but I didn't personally inspect the haunted house exhibit. Did you? Lily shook her head. No, Alma brought it in at the last minute after the face-off machine was stolen. So maybe something went wrong in the rush to get it up and running, Rachel theorized. Maybe there's some kind of gas leak or the lights are strobing too much. All I know is that something strange is affecting a lot of people. Something strange indeed. Lily considered the possibilities. I think it's time we go take a look for ourselves. I'll get my coat. Lily headed for the front door but stopped suddenly. She grabbed her stomach. Ooh! Lily fell to the ground in pain. Rachel ran over to her and kneeled down beside her friend. What is it? Rachel asked. What's wrong? Lily felt her stomach once again. She processed everything that was happening. She considered all the possibilities when she suddenly realized, oh no, I think I'm going into labor. Rachel's eyes went wide. What? Whoa! Okay, we can handle this. Let's get you to a hospital. No, Lily pushed back. Not a hospital. Dr. Serafina Willow. I need to go to Dr. Serafina Willow's office. She'll know what to do. And call Kevin. Rachel helped Lily to her feet. The babies were finally coming. Rushing to her trusted obstetrician, Dr. Serafina Willow, Lily was joined by Kevin, who held his wife's hand as Dr. Willow finished her examination. You're fine, Dr. Willow offered coldly. Fine? Lily asked. I can feel the contractions. False labor, Dr. Willow replied in a matter-of-fact manner. Happens all the time, nothing to worry about, but I should keep you here overnight for further observation. Best to be safe. Lily was confused. Dr. Willow had never been this indifferent before. Something felt wrong, but Lily was too stressed to focus on anything beside the health of her soon-to-be-born twins. Whatever you think best, Serafina. I'll stay here overnight with Lily, Kevin offered. No, Serafina exclaimed oddly. Best to not give her any undue burden while she's being observed. I won't be a burden, Kevin replied. I'll be here to take care of her. No, Lily pushed back. You can't. There's too much at stake right now. The world and the Foundation need you, Kevin. I don't care. I won't leave your side, not when you need me most. Kevin took Lily's hand. We're going to get through this. Together. That's really not necessary, Dr. Willow cut in. Again, I said it's false labor. Mild pains that feel like labor caused by stress. I can give her some fluids, and she should be good as new by tomorrow morning. Lily nodded in agreement. Serafina is right, Kevin. I'll be fine, but I can't stay here. If I'm not having the twins tonight, I need to keep an eye on everything that's happening with the World's Fair. We have thousands of tourists pouring into the city, and I've worked too hard for too long to just close my eyes and hope for the best. Kevin can handle all of that, Dr. Willow noted. You need to rest. For the babies. Lily. For the babies. She's right, Lily, Kevin finally agreed. I know you care about the people in the city, but our twins need you most of all. Fine, Lily offered. Then a hotel room it is. A hotel room? Kevin repeated, confused. Serafina can monitor me from a hotel room, Lily explained. The top floor, somewhere with lots of windows so I can see everything that's happening below at the fair. All right, Lily, Kevin replied. Whatever you think best. Does that work for you, Dr. Willow? Dr. Willow shrugged. Sure. It'll be harder for me, but I can make that work. Serafina pushed out a big fake smile, but Kevin and Lily were too distracted to notice. Later that day, Kevin checked Lily into the tallest hotel in Chicago, the Crowne Plaza. Dr. Willow set up a makeshift observatory as Lily lay in bed looking out the window at the World's Fair below. Rachel and Alma Capone joined Lily in the suite. We're here, Lily, Rachel offered. Anything you need, just say the word. Kevin thanked Rachel, then stepped over to his wife one last time. Everything is going to be all right, my love, Kevin offered. I promise. Kevin kissed Lily on the forehead. Go, Lily replied. Save the city. Save the world. Save the foundation. Stop the pinnacle. Kevin smiled at his wife one last time and then headed for the exit. Dr. Serafina Willow asked Rachel and Alma to step into the other room. What's up, Doctor? Rachel asked. I don't want Lily to hear what I'm about to say, Dr. Serafina explained. But I think there is a problem. A problem? Rachel asked. What is it? Dr. Willow made sure Lily couldn't see before turning back to Rachel. You. Alma suddenly covered Rachel's mouth with a wet cloth. Shocked, Rachel tried to fight back. She swung her hands wildly, trying to get free, but Alma held her tight. The cloth was dipped in chloroform, and Rachel began to fade into unconsciousness. Eventually, Rachel's body slumped into a motionless heap on the floor. Put her in that coat closet with the rest of them, Dr. Serafina plotted. Alma dragged Rachel's body over to the closet and opened the door, revealing the real Dr. Serafina Willow lying unconscious on the floor, with her face missing. Alma placed Rachel beside the doctor, closed the door, and then rejoined Juanita Hernandez, who had disguised herself behind Dr. Serafina Willow's face using the face-off machine stolen from the fair days earlier. False labor? Alma cackled. I can't believe they fell for that. They trust their doctor, Juanita replied. They'd believe anything she told them. They'd believe anything I told them. Juanita had lied to Lily and Kevin. Lily was in fact very much in labor. The babies were coming. How long do we have to wait? Alma asked. This city is going to be a dumpster fire very, very soon. The pinnacle is coming. Lily's contractions are moving closer and closer together, Juanita explained. We should be delivering those twins in the next few hours. Good, Alma replied. Embrace the darkness. Juanita nodded in agreement. Embrace the darkness. Both women tapped their shoulders 3 times fast. The secret pinnacle handshake. Alma looked around the space. It only makes sense to join them. Pinnacle is too powerful. No one could defeat them. And if we help them now, think of the benefits we could reap. We'll be kings. I don't care about their money or power, Juanita pushed back. I just want those twins.
I'll finally have my children back. The children Kevin took from me. That's all the reward I need. And soon you'll have exactly that, Alma echoed. You'll have your babies and the Pinnacle will have the world. We just need to keep this act going for a little while longer. Lily can't know what's happening. She'd try to fight us off, and any added stress could make the delivery go bad. Absolutely, Juanita agreed. We'll keep her warm and cozy until the babies finally come. And then, when I have them, we can kill the real Dr. Serafina Willow and Rachel too. Good, Alma replied. I'm so sick of having to play nice with those two buffoons. You put on quite the show for them, Juanita complimented. I did my best, Alma countered. But what about Lily? When this is all done, do we hand her over to the Pinnacle too? They won't need her, Juanita countered. By the time this is done, Kevin Williams will be dead. So what do we do with his beautiful bride? Alma probed. I'd hate to see the two lovebirds separated, Juanita smiled. So I guess we'll have to kill Lily as well.
With Lily in a safe place after Dr. Serafina Willow assessed that she was only in false labor, Kevin refocused all of his efforts on defending the Foundation from the looming threat of the Pinnacle. Kevin hurried back to his war room. Brett stood by a large screen displaying a massive tactical map of the world, his eyes fixed on the various green, blue, and yellow markers scattered across it.
Kevin, you're back,
Brett remarked, turning to face his friend.
Spectacular timing. We have some crucial updates.
Kevin nodded, his gaze sweeping over the map. What's the situation? Brett pointed out different locations marked on the map.
Reinforcements are in place. We've coordinated with the Myriad and Radiance fighters around the globe. They're all on high alert, ready to mobilize at a moment's notice.
We don't know where the Pinnacle plans to strike first, Olivia added, but we assume they'll go after major cities on every continent, and most likely they'll start with Chicago.
If that's the case, Brett boasted, we'll be ready.
Kevin considered the plan.
Good. That's good. A solid start.
Dalton Steele stepped over and offered Kevin a cup of black coffee.
What's the word on Lily?
Dalton asked. False labor, Kevin replied, taking a long slug of coffee.
Lucky, Yuki noted.
Very lucky, Hiro added. Don't worry, Olivia chimed in once again. Soon enough it'll be the real thing. I'm sure you'll get to bring those twins out into the world sooner than you think. Kevin's focus hardened as he looked over the global map. Let's just hope there's still a world waiting for them when they get here. Brett's determination matched Kevin's.
There will be. Everyone knows what's at stake. Myriad and Radiance fighters have trained for this very situation. But Pinnacle has been training too, Marcus pushed back. In the dark, in secret, building up their skills. We don't even know how many of them there are or what they're capable of.
But we're about to find out, Kyle countered.
We're as ready as we can be, Zane cut in. Kevin, you've done everything you can, and the rest of us are here to back you up. We can win. We will win.
Kevin felt a surge of pride knowing that he had been able to gather such a dedicated network of allies over time. In the last few years, Kevin had fought with every person now standing in the war room with him. The group had fought in epic battles all over the world, and now they all waited to fight again, side by side, together, one last time.
I couldn't ask for a better team, Kevin offered, a sense of determination filling his voice.
Thank you, all of you. An alarm suddenly went off within the war room. Marcus called out,
Kevin, there's a call coming in.
Show me, Kevin replied. Two flickering holograms materialized in the center of the room. Interpol agent Karen Stone's face appeared alongside the face of the Reaper Squad leader, Stanley Cooper. Stanley, Karen, it's good to see you both, Kevin offered. I just wish it was under better circumstances.
Stanley's voice boomed through the room, cutting through the tension.
Kevin, I've got Reaper Squad agents positioned throughout the city, ready to fight.
The Reaper Squad was renowned for their efficiency and effectiveness in high-stakes operations. Kevin nodded in thanks. Thank you, Stanley. I appreciate your support.
We've also got a fleet of helicopters ready to mobilize as soon as the Pinnacle makes a move.
Stanley continued.
We'll be right there with you. In the air, land, or sea, Reaper Squad has your back.
Kevin grinned. I never had a doubt.
Well, let's not start patting each other on the back just yet.
Agent Karen Stone's hologram interjected.
We've still got an unseen invasion force getting ready to attack the world. Not exactly a best-case scenario.
Kevin's hopeful grin faded as he turned to Agent Karen Stone's hologram. Good to see you again, too, Karen. Cut the small talk, flyboy, Karen offered curtly.
I'm not here to make chit-chat. I'm here to talk shop. We've been monitoring reports from all over Chicago, and there's been a disturbing trend. Thousands of people have been reported missing to the police.
The teleportation machine, Kevin replied. It's been teleporting people to a Pinnacle conversion camp in Arizona. They brainwash normal citizens and then train them to fight alongside the Pinnacle forces. Karen nodded in understanding.
That tracks, but the more disturbing reports are the ones about the people who haven't gone missing.
Kevin frowned in confusion. What does that mean? Karen's image fluttered slightly.
We've gotten hundreds of reports of people saying their friends and family are acting differently.
Differently? Olivia asked.
Strangely,
Agent Stone corrected.
Kids are reporting on their parents acting differently, as if the light has gone out in their eyes.
What is that? Kevin wondered.
That's what you need to find out,
Stone replied.
The only connection we could find is that they've all gone through the haunted house located inside the World's Fair.
The haunted house? Kevin questioned aloud. But it's just a silly amusement park exhibit. Lily added it at the last minute when the face-off machine was stolen.
I don't have any answers for you,
Agent Stone offered.
I just asked the questions.
Kevin nodded. We'll look into it. A chill ran down Kevin's spine. The haunted house had been a popular attraction, but this sudden surge of reported strange activity was deeply unsettling. As Stanley Cooper's and Agent Karen Stone's holograms faded, leaving the war room once again cloaked in silence, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over him. A tense atmosphere settled upon the group. Olivia, Dalton, and Zane exchanged worried glances.
What's the play?
Dalton asked. We have to take a look at what's going on inside the haunted house, Kevin responded with building urgency. We will all go together, Brett offered, and I can have a team of Myriad fighters meet us at the event to back us up. No, Kevin pushed back. No? Olivia questioned. Why not? It's too dangerous, Kevin explained. We don't know exactly what we're dealing with yet. I need to go alone. If we all go rushing in, we risk tipping off the Pinnacle that we're onto something. We can't afford to make any mistakes. Reluctantly, Olivia, Dalton, and Zane nodded, understanding the necessity of Kevin's decision. They exchanged a silent vow to remain vigilant and ready to act at a moment's notice. Kevin turned to his team, his voice firm. Stay on high alert. The war is coming. Later, Kevin stood in line at the World's Fair waiting to enter the haunted house. Kevin wore his Kevin Wilkinson disguise, his persona when he was acting with his Radiance team. He hoped not to be noticed by anyone. As he waited, Kevin took in the fairgrounds. He watched as thousands of innocent people gleefully took in the different venues and lined up at food trucks. They have no idea what's actually happening, Kevin thought to himself. They have no idea the danger they're in. As he finally stepped inside, a shiver ran down Kevin's spine. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant sound of muffled screams and nervous laughter. I love a good haunted house, a young child exclaimed. So scary, the young boy's mother lamented. The haunted house staff, dressed in terrifying demon masks, lurked in the shadows, doing their best to scare the patrons. But beneath their facade of terror, Kevin sensed something more sinister at play. Levels, Kevin thought. Every worker inside this haunted house has levels. But why? Navigating through the twisting corridors and macabre exhibit, Kevin's senses sharpened, his instincts on high alert. And then he saw it. As he walked into the main room of the haunted house, 1,000 old-fashioned televisions sat waiting, stacked on top of each other playing static. "What's this?" the young boy asked his mother. "Maybe they're going to show us a scary movie," his mother replied. "I hope it's not too scary." Suddenly, the static-filled screens turned to very specific images. A series of flashing symbols appeared. Subtle yet unmistakable, embedded within the displays, their hypnotic glow ensnared the unsuspecting attendees. Kevin realized what this was. "Another Pinnacle Conversion Center," Kevin exclaimed. "They're hypnotizing all the patrons who walk through the haunted house. It's a trap! It's all a trap!" The Pinnacle had infiltrated the haunted house, using its sinister allure to subjugate unwitting victims to their cause. Kevin's blood ran cold as he realized the extent of the Pinnacle's depravity. They were attempting to turn everyone into mindless drones, obedient to their every command. With determination burning in his veins, Kevin raced for the exit before the mind control could take him over. Still, with the eye patch Kevin donned when taking on the role of Kenneth Wilkinson, Kevin covered his only visible eye while he hurled his body forward. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled determination, Kevin crashed through the door, landing on the other side. As he picked himself up off the ground, a familiar voice could suddenly be heard.
Well, 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 the voice prodded gleefully. I didn't expect to see you here so soon.
Kevin looked up to find Vincent Reeves operating the controls to the televisions from the other room. "Vincent Reeves?" Kevin gasped. Vincent grinned.
I knew today would be a good day, but I didn't expect that it would be the day I finally get to kill Kevin Williams.
Kevin's jaw clenched with fury as he faced his nemesis, his mind racing with a singular purpose: to put an end to the Pinnacle's reign of terror and to Vincent Reeves, once and for all. After receiving information about the Pinnacle infiltrating the haunted house exhibit at the World's Fair, Kevin went undercover to see what he could learn about the looming threat. As he journeyed through the haunted house, Kevin soon learned that the Pinnacle was using the venue as a way to hypnotize unsuspecting patrons. Before he could escape, Kevin found himself face to face with his old rival, Vincent Reeves. Kevin's heart raced as he confronted Vincent Reeves in the depths of the haunted house. Vincent stood behind the controls of the massive nightmarish labyrinth. The air was thick with the scent of fear. Kevin, a level 9 fighter, squared his shoulders, ready to face down his long-ago ally who had turned into his most brutal and menacing enemy.
Kevin Williams,
Vincent smirked, his eyes glinting with a sinister intent.
We meet again.
Vincent Reeves, Kevin replied. I didn't expect to see you here, but I'm not surprised. You always were ripe to become a puppet for the Pinnacle. Kevin's jaw clenched as he prepared for the battle to come. He knew Vincent was no ordinary opponent. They were both leveled fighters, but Kevin had recently ascended from level 7 to level 9, and now seemed like a perfect opportunity to unleash some of his newly gained abilities. This won't end well for you, Vincent, Kevin explained as he began to circle his longtime foe. Surrender now and tell me everything you know about what the Pinnacle is planning, or suffer the consequences. Kevin's hands balled into fists.
The consequences? Vincent laughed. You've already taken both of my hands, but maybe I should be thanking you for that, because from out of the ashes of the past, a phoenix will rise.
Vincent removed the cloak he had been wearing, revealing 2 thick robotic arms.
Shiny, Vincent gloated, and strong.
Vincent punched the concrete wall beside him, obliterating it into a million pieces. His robotic arms seemed to be super strong and nearly indestructible. So you've got 2 robotic arms, Kevin replied. You don't scare me.
2? Vincent repeated in a taunting fashion. I think you should count them again. Vincent's 2 robotic arms split into 2 more and then 2 more again. Kevin suddenly found himself standing in front of Vincent Reeves, who now had 6 menacing robotic appendages, 3 on each side of his body, like a human spider. Kevin sized up his opponent. "You're a monster," he whispered. "We are in a haunted house," Vincent mused. "Seems appropriate." Vincent swung his robotic arms at Kevin. With lightning reflexes, Kevin dodged Vincent's initial onslaught, but the relentless barrage of punches and kicks from 6 different robotic arms was a challenge. Using his level 9 agility, Kevin waited for Vincent to swing again, and then used the villain's momentum to throw him through the wall. The 2 men crashed through the haunted house, their battle raging through the twisting corridors and eerie chambers of the nightmare-themed amusement. As they burst through another wall and into an indoor corn maze, Kevin's mind raced, searching for a way to gain the upper hand. He ducked and weaved, his fists a blur as he unleashed a flurry of strikes against Vincent's 6 robotic arms. But each blow was met with a swift counterattack, as Vincent's mechanical limbs moved with unnatural precision. Vincent's taunting voice cut through the darkness like a knife. "You can't defeat me, Kevin." He jeered, his words dripping with venom. "I hold all the cards now. Surrender to the pinnacle, or I'll make sure it's Lily who pays the ultimate price." Kevin's blood turned to hot lava at the mention of his wife's name. With a primal roar, Kevin redoubled his efforts, channeling every ounce of strength and determination into his strikes. Kevin pushed Vincent back, weaving through his 6 metal arms to deliver a series of perfect punches to the villain's chest. Vincent was knocked back through another wall. Kevin pursued, and Kevin suddenly found himself inside an eerie hallway lined with a million different oddly shaped mirrors. "Mirrors," Kevin whispered to himself. "That's not good." The hall of mirrors stretched out before Kevin like a maze of deceit, each reflection distorting reality in its own twisted way. Vincent's voice echoed through the chamber. "You see, Kevin," Vincent sneered, his words bouncing off the mirrored walls. "The pinnacle is too powerful to defeat. You can't fight what you can't even see. No man can battle the darkness." Vincent appeared out of nowhere and lunged at Kevin. As the 2 men crashed through the mirror, shards of reflective glass rained down around them like deadly raindrops. Vincent moved with unnatural grace, his 6 hands darting out to snatch up 6 different shards, each one glinting with malevolent intent. "6 knives!" Vincent shouted gleefully. But Kevin was not without his own hidden weapon. With a swift motion, Kevin drew forth his night dagger, its blade shimmering in the dim light of the hall. With a grim determination, he locked eyes with Vincent, ready to face whatever twisted fate awaited them. Vincent's lips curled into a cruel smile as he advanced, his mechanical hands a blur as he engaged Kevin in a vicious knife fight. Kevin parried and dodged, his senses on high alert as he sought an opening in Vincent's defenses. Kevin's level 9 fighting abilities finally came into play. Vincent was moving with kinetic speed, but the world seemed to slow down around Kevin. He waited for an opening, and then he struck Vincent with his night dagger. "Ah!" Vincent cried out as one of his metallic arms fell to the ground. Kevin had successfully sliced the robotic appendage from his enemy's body. 5 more to go, Kevin whispered. Vincent lunged forward yet again. Kevin dodged and struck back. A second metallic arm hit the floor. 4, Kevin noted. Vincent launched himself at Kevin, their blades clashing in a deadly dance of steel and serrated glass. Kevin fought Vincent back further and further until suddenly the 2 men found themselves fighting in front of a fresh crowd of tourists who were waiting in the TV room. The tourists had yet to be hypnotized, and they watched Kevin fighting the now 4-armed man, thinking it must be part of the show. "Oh, live theater," an older woman exclaimed. "How did they get his arms to look so real?" a young child asked. The battle continued.
Vincent was using his last forearms to fight, but Kevin now had the clear advantage. One by one, Kevin lobbed off Vincent's arms until the villain was down to just one.
You can't win, Kevin,
Vincent shouted, his voice dripping with malice.
Join us. Join the Pinnacle. Imagine the power we could wield, the riches you could command, the life you could give Lily and your twins.
Kevin shook his head, his resolve unwavering. I'll never join you, he declared, his voice a low growl. I don't need your riches. I've already got my own empire. Vincent swung at Kevin, but it was too late. Kevin finished the job, cutting off the last of Vincent Reeves's arms. 0, Kevin offered with a quiet finality. Vincent's eyes went wide.
You haven't won, Vincent cried out. I'll never stop. You'll never defeat me. There's nowhere you can run that I won't find you. I'll kill you, Kevin Williams. I'll murder you and your beautiful wife. If you won't join the Pinnacle, then maybe your babies will.
Kevin had heard enough. With a single swift motion, Kevin reached forward and ripped Vincent's heart out of his chest. The room fell silent as the spectators watched in horror, their eyes wide with disbelief. One child's voice cut through the silence. "That looks so real!" he exclaimed. "Awesome!" Vincent's body fell to the ground in a lifeless heap. The group of tourists began to applaud, thinking they were still watching the conclusion of a very fun show. Kevin stared down at the still beating heart in his hand. He had done it. He had defeated Vincent Reeves once and for all. But even though he had won the battle, Kevin knew the war had just begun. With a determined stride, Kevin called Brett Stewart. Brett's voice crackled through the receiver.
Kevin, good to hear from you. What did you find at the haunted house? Anything?
They're here. They're already here, Kevin quickly explained. The Pinnacle was using the haunted house to hypnotize thousands of unknowing tourists. I just fought Vincent Reeves. If the Pinnacle didn't know we were onto them before, they know for sure now, Kevin said, his voice urgent. Get to the haunted house. Bring the myriads. We need to sweep the grounds, go through every exhibit, make sure the Pinnacle isn't lurking anywhere else on the fairgrounds. Brett didn't hesitate.
We're on the way.
As Kevin moved through the haunted house, he knew the time was of the essence. He powered off the television scattered throughout the spooky exhibit, making sure the Pinnacle couldn't use them for mind control ever again. Stepping out into the light, Kevin was greeted by the sight of Brett Stewart and a team of myriad fighters standing at the ready. "Kevin!" Brett exclaimed. "I'm glad you're safe. I have men searching all the other exhibits." "They've been here the whole time," Kevin explained. "The Pinnacle has been hypnotizing tourists since the fair opened." "It'll be all right," Brett assured Kevin. "Whatever the Pinnacle's master plan was, you got here and stopped them before they could carry it out to completion. You did it, Kevin." A sense of calm washed over Kevin. Maybe Brett was right. Maybe Kevin had stopped the Pinnacle in time. But just then, Kevin spotted something new. The brightly lit sky above suddenly turned dark. A shadow washed over Kevin as his eyes widened in horror. Oh no. A giant floating landmass hovered into view, covering Chicago in darkness from above. "What in the world is that?" Brett exclaimed. Kevin's expression sank. "Apex Island." "The whole island?" Brett pushed back. "But how?" "I don't know," Kevin responded, his expression grim. "But it's here. They're here. The war with the Pinnacle has finally begun." Kevin ripped the heart out of his longtime enemy Vincent Reeves's chest and briefly thought that perhaps the invasion by the Pinnacle would end, until he and Brett Sawyer saw all of Apex Island looming over the city as the invasion was obviously about to begin. Apex Island hovered high above the ground, casting an eerie shadow over the entire city of Chicago. Kevin stood with Brett and a team of fierce myriad fighters, taking in the imposing sight as it shifted into its final position and finally slowed to a stop. "What are they doing?" Brett wondered. "Why park their entire island directly above the city?" Kevin's mind raced with the possibilities. Then he suddenly realized. It's strategic, Kevin replied. Like chess. They're moving their forces all around, moving their pieces into position all over the world. Moving their pieces into position for what? Brett probed. Kevin's expression sank. Checkmate. From above, like a storm, an army of pinnacle warriors descended upon the fairgrounds. Look, Brett exclaimed. It's the Pinnacle, Kevin shouted. Pinnacle soldiers! They can fly! Thousands upon thousands of pinnacle warriors flew down from the sky, like hail from the heavens above. A tidal wave of darkness covering everything in sight. Kevin, direct our forces! Lead our attack! Brett shouted, his eyes darting around at the overwhelming multitude of pinnacle soldiers, landing all over. Kevin processed everything that was happening. This was the moment he had feared for so long, the moment he had trained for, the moment his whole life had been building toward. Yes, I'll lead our forces, Kevin said as his hands balled into fists, in a fight to rid the world of evil. A thunderclap crackled across the darkened sky as Kevin and Brett faced off together against the onslaught of Pinnacle warriors. The Pinnacle fighters were covered in black metal armor, making it hard to land decisive blows. They carried stun rods and sharp knives, flamethrowers and bombs, and they could fly. But Kevin, a level 9 fighter, refused to back down. With a primal roar, Kevin unleashed the full extent of his abilities, tapping into every level he had ever earned through years of training and discipline. His fists blurred as he lashed out against the waves of Pinnacle soldiers, his telekinetic powers hurling them back with a force that bordered on the supernatural. Protect the civilians, Kevin called out toward the myriad fighters. Push the Pinnacle back, out of the fairgrounds so we can establish a clear perimeter to defend. Brett fought alongside Kevin, leading the myriads into battle with fierce determination. His fist danced through the air, beating down foe after foe as he rallied his troops to stand against the encroaching darkness. Watch out for their blades, Brett ordered. Disarm as many as you can and use their weapons against them. Kevin and Brett fought together with all their strength, their bodies a blur of motion as they struggled to keep pace with the relentless onslaught. But for every Pinnacle soldier that fell, 2 more seemed to fly down from above and take their place. The reinforcements seemed endless. The Pinnacle soldiers poured forth like a never-ending tide, their numbers overwhelming even for the most seasoned fighters. Despite their best efforts, Kevin and Brett found themselves struggling to win the day, the sheer number of their opponents bearing down on them like a mountain. The myriads fought valiantly alongside them, their ranks thinning with each passing moment. As the battle raged on in Chicago, chaos unfolded across the globe as the Pinnacle's invading forces spread like wildfire. But all over the world, brave souls rose up to stand against the swiftly spreading darkness. Cutting through the tumultuous waters of the Maldives, Majid, a skilled waterbender, stood against the onslaught of the Pinnacle foes flying in from above. With a wave of his hand, he summoned a reverse tidal wave, sending the invading soldiers crashing back into the depths of the ocean, their cries lost amidst the roar of the waves. But more Pinnacle warriors quickly flew in to take their place. At the same time, in the heart of the ancient sands of Egypt, Jabari fought a desperate battle against the relentless tide of Pinnacle soldiers. His loyal animal companions leaped and lunged at their foes, tearing through the ranks with primal ferocity. But despite their best efforts, Jabari could see that he was fighting a losing battle. For every soldier they felled, 10 more seemed to take their place, their numbers overwhelming even the most savage of beasts. Meanwhile, in downtown Tokyo, amid the neon lights and bustling crowds, Quentin Covington's reformed son Q stood at the forefront of the battle against the Pinnacle's forces. With a flick of his wrist, he activated dozens of high-tech mech suits, towering robot fighters ready to fight. "Eat metal, you weird flying creeps!" Q shouted. Q pressed a button and the mech suits unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy blasts against the encroaching Pinnacle soldiers. Q could see the bystanders standing around, their phones held aloft as they captured the spectacle for their social media pages. But during all the excitement, Q knew that there was no time for idle admiration. Lives were at stake, and he was determined to do whatever it took to protect his city from the seemingly endless forces of darkness. The battle around the world continued. In the halls of the Williams School in Washington, D.C., Katja Rafferty stood alongside a group of former Upper Realm Gatekeeper candidates, their unique skills ready to defend their home against the invading forces of the Pinnacle. With a steely resolve, they stood prepared to face whatever horrors awaited them, their training and determination the only thing standing between their school and utter destruction. "Stand together, students," Katja exclaimed. "Fight together!" And in Griffith Park, beneath the iconic Hollywood sign, Radiance fighters and Jericho battled against the Pinnacle fleet as it descended upon the city like a swarm of locusts. But sadly, it wasn't all heroics. Back in Chicago, Uncle Thomas lay bedridden, his once sinister spirit now subdued by prolonged illness. The room was hushed, the only sound the soft rhythm of his labored breathing. Ethan, his supposed son, sat by his bedside looking at pictures in dirty magazines. Suddenly, the tranquility of the room was shattered by the sound of splintering wood as the door to their home was kicked open and dozens of Pinnacle warriors rushed in. Not much of a fighter, Ethan instinctively reached for the napkin on the bedside table, a makeshift white flag in the face of imminent danger.
"I give up! I give up!" Ethan shouted. "I understand if you have to kill the old man, but spare me! Spare me!"
Back at the World's Fair, as the epic battle raged on at the fairgrounds, Kevin and Brett found themselves cornered, their backs against the wall as the flames of the Pinnacle's assault consumed everything around them.
"Burn it down," a Pinnacle soldier ordered. "Burn it all down."
A wave of Pinnacle troops with flamethrowers stepped forward and lit every structure on fire.
"We're cornered," Brett yelled to Kevin. "They're forming a wall around us."
"Let's tear it down," Kevin shouted in reply. Kevin focused his mind and used the 10 directions technique to freeze time momentarily. Using the brief window of calm, Kevin quickly disarmed every Pinnacle member carrying a flamethrower and moved Brett through the wall of soldiers. As Kevin restarted time, the Pinnacle soldiers were confused as to how they had lost track of both Kevin and Brett.
"That was close," Brett noted. "How did we get past those soldiers?"
"I'll explain later," Kevin offered. "For now, just focus on staying alive." The air was thick with smoke and ash, the stench of burning debris clinging to their clothes as they fought against impossible odds.
"We can't keep this up," Brett shouted. "There are just too many of them."
"We can't give up," Kevin countered. "Chicago needs us. The world needs us."
"We have to get word to the war room," Brett added as he fought back multiple Pinnacle warriors. "We need all the reinforcements we can muster."
"They know," Kevin countered as he kicked 2 Pinnacle fighters into each other. "They must have seen the floating island. With any luck, they're on their way with a fleet of helicopters."
"Or maybe they were overwhelmed by the Pinnacle's sheer numbers too,"
Brett pushed back. With a sinking feeling in his gut, Kevin started to fear that they couldn't win this fight, at least not at this point. The enemy's forces were too great, their strength too overwhelming. There were just too many of them. In the midst of chaos, a grim realization settled upon Kevin. They couldn't just keep fighting. They'd have to retreat. Keep fighting and die, or live to fight another day. "You're right," Kevin finally shouted to Brett.
"Right about what?"
Brett pushed back. "We can't win this fight, not like this. We need to fall back and regroup," Kevin yelled to his ally. Brett nodded in agreement.
"I'm with you, Kevin. What's the plan?"
But as Kevin began to plot their escape, his gaze fell upon the faces of those around him, the myriad of soldiers and innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire. Kevin knew that not everyone would be able to make it out in time and that sacrifices would have to be made.
"Lead them to safety," Kevin ordered Brett. "You're myriad fighters. Get them out of here." Me? Brett pushed back. What are you going to do? I'll create a diversion, Kevin replied. I'll draw the Pinnacle's attention and give you a chance to make your escape. No, Kevin, Brett refused. We can't afford to lose you. Kevin smiled. You won't. We'll see each other again. Now go. With a heavy heart, Kevin made a decision, one that he knew would change everything. He would stay behind, sacrificing himself to buy the others time to escape. It was a choice born out of desperation, but one that he knew he had to make. Kevin and Brett locked stairs for one last beat before Brett took off running, calling on his myriad troops to follow him. Kevin remained a horde of Pinnacle warriors rushing toward him. When Brett was far enough away, Kevin raised his hands into the air and shouted out, "My name is Kevin Williams, and I hereby officially surrender to the forces of the Pinnacle." The statement caught everyone's attention. The Pinnacle warriors stopped chasing Brett and the myriads and focused all their attention on Kevin. They surrounded him, placing Kevin in heavy chains before pulling him away. Kevin knew that his fate now lay in the hands of his enemies and that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. Kevin could only hope that Brett would make it out alive, that somehow, against all odds, they would be reunited once more. But as the flame of the Pinnacle's assault continued to rage around them, he couldn't shake the fear that this might be the end of the road for him. After the Pinnacle launched their full-scale invasion against the Foundation, Kevin and all of his allies across the globe fought valiantly to stop them. But realizing that they were outnumbered, Kevin made the surprising decision to surrender to the Pinnacle forces in order to give Brett and the myriad fighters time to retreat from the fairgrounds and to regroup. Kevin was led in handcuffs onto Apex Island, a floating mega-fortress hovering high above the city of Chicago. A voice could be heard blaring over speakers, repeating a single word over and over again. "Obey, obey, obey." 1,000 Pinnacle troops escorted Kevin toward the main building, a large circular structure that shimmered menacingly in the middle of the floating oasis. As Kevin was guided inside and pushed forward toward an unseen destination, his mind worked quickly to develop a plan. He sized up the situation. Kevin was handcuffed with thick metal chains around his wrists, but his level 9 abilities granted him the strength to break free anytime he wanted. But Kevin was in no rush to escape. He was determined to play the part of a defeated captive because he knew that was the best way to uncover the Pinnacle's ultimate plan and learn who had been pulling the levers of the Pinnacle behind the scenes all this time. Who was the head of the Pinnacle? As Kevin was escorted through the maze of corridors of the main structure, his senses remained on high alert. He took note of every detail. The leveled guards posted at every corner, the cameras lining the walls. As he was led into a large, darkened chamber, Kevin braced himself for whatever might come next. The space was dark and quiet. It was impossible to see anything through the endless blackness ahead. Suddenly, Kevin was blinded by light. As his eyes adjusted, Kevin realized exactly where he had been led. An arena. A vast Colosseum-like structure with thousands of Pinnacle warriors surrounding Kevin in the audience above, cheering on whatever was to come next. Kevin stood alone in the center of the circular arena, its high metal walls adorned with ancient Pinnacle symbols that pulsed with otherworldly energy. At the far end of the chamber, a throne loomed large, its occupant obscured in shadow as he watched Kevin's arrival. Kevin could feel the weight of eyes gaze upon him, a palpable sense of danger hanging in the air. Below the throne, a half-dozen masked figures stood, covered in black cloaks. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed through the Colosseum, sending shivers down Kevin's spine. "Welcome, Kevin Williams," the voice thundered, its tone filled with powerful menace. "You stand before the Council of the Pinnacle, and you will answer for your crimes." The audience of Pinnacle warriors bellowed in approval. Kevin's jaw clenched as he faced his unseen judges. He knew that this was the moment he had been dreading, the trial by fire that would determine his fate on Apex Island.
But even as the voice demanded answers, Kevin remained steadfast in his resolve. "What do you want from me?" Kevin asked. The arena grew quiet once again. The voice responded with words that reverberated through the chamber like a death knell. "We require a sacrifice. Your beautiful wife, Lily," it declared, its tone cold and unforgiving. "Lily?" Kevin repeated in surprise. "No, you already have me. What could you possibly want with Lily?"
"We asked the questions," the voice proclaimed in growing anger. "Tell us where she is and we'll let you live."
With a defiant glare, Kevin stared into the darkness toward the unseen head of the pinnacle in the distance. "Never," Kevin replied simply. "She's not a pawn to be used in your twisted game. If you want Lily, you'll have to go through me first." The voice fell silent for a moment, the tension thickening with each passing moment. But even as he faced the wrath of the Council of the Pinnacle, Kevin remained resolute in his defiance, ready to face whatever consequences awaited him for his refusal to yield. But nothing could have prepared him for what came next.
"Your defiance comes from your strength," the voice taunted. "Your level 9 abilities. But what if you don't have that strength? What if you lost those special abilities? Would you still be so defiant?"
A pinnacle warrior stepped into view carrying something in his hands. Before he could react, a helmet was placed upon Kevin's head, its dark metal gleaming in the dim light of the chamber. Kevin could feel its weight pressing down upon him. "What is this?" Kevin asked. The voice laughed.
"Your reckoning."
In a flash, Kevin was struck by a surge of power running through the helmet. Kevin fell to his knees as he could sense his levels eroding, rendering him powerless in every way.
"This helmet removes your levels," the voice explained. "Everything you've learned, all your training, this helmet blocks those memories, leaving you as just an ordinary man."
A wave of panic washed over Kevin as he realized the truth.
"Give us Lily,"
the voice repeated. The audience chanted as one. "Obey, obey, obey." Before he could react, Kevin found himself surrounded by the Pinnacle warriors, clad in black metal suits of armor. Their eyes burned with malice as they closed in around him, their movements swift and precise as they began to beat him with metal batons. With each blow, Kevin felt his strength waning, his body racked with pain as he struggled to remain conscious. The voices of his tormentors echoed in his ears, mocking and berating him as they reveled in his suffering.
"Obey, obey, obey."
But amid the darkness and despair, Kevin refused to surrender. With every ounce of strength he could muster, he fought against his captors, his spirit unbroken even as his body was battered and broken. As the torture continued, Kevin's mind raced with thoughts of escape. He knew that he had to find a way out of this nightmare to break free from the chains that bound him to reclaim his freedom. But with each passing moment, the odds seemed more insurmountable, the darkness closing in around him. In the shadows, unseen by Kevin, the true mastermind behind the Pinnacle's machinations reveled in the agony of his captive prey. With a twisted grin, the leader watched as Kevin writhed in pain. Kevin threw up his hand. The voice understood. It boomed.
"Wait!"
The Pinnacle warriors backed away from Kevin's beaten body.
"We've broken your body," the voice exclaimed. "Now we shall break your mind."
The unseen head of the Pinnacle lowered his hand toward a small control panel. With a flick of his wrist, the leader pressed a button, sending a jolt of agony coursing through the helmet into Kevin's mind directly. Kevin cried out in pain, and the audience applauded. But even as Kevin's screams echoed through the chamber, the shadowy figure could only laugh, a cruel and mocking sound that echoed through the darkness. With each twist of the controls, the unseen leader basked in the power he held over his captive, relishing in the despair that radiated from Kevin's broken form. To him, there was no greater joy than to watch his enemy suffer. And as the laughter wafted and bounced through the chamber, A chill settled over Kevin's heart. He knew that he was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape, his fate now in the hands of a merciless puppet master who took great delight in his suffering. But even as despair threatened to consume him, Kevin refused to surrender. With every fiber of his being, he clung to hope, determined to break free from the shackles that bound him and reclaim his destiny from the clutches of darkness. For as long as he drew breath, he would never give up the fight. "I can't give up," Kevin whispered to himself. "The Foundation needs me. Lily needs me. Our unborn twins need me." Kevin focused as his mind was attacked by wave after wave of electricity. Every ounce of his being strained against the darkness that threatened to consume him, his mind a battlefield where the forces of light and shadow clashed in a struggle for dominance. But suddenly the shock waves stopped. Kevin took a breath. Why had they stopped? What could possibly be coming next? A figure suddenly emerged onto the arena floor. The man slowly walked toward Kevin. A hush grew over the audience as Kevin suddenly realized who this was. The unseen head of the Pinnacle, the man responsible for torturing Kevin. Finally, Kevin would know the truth. He would see who had been behind the darkness for all this time. But as the figure stepped closer, Kevin's expression suddenly dropped. His blood ran cold as he realized who was walking over to him. From the shadows, a dark, twisted reflection of Kevin himself appeared, cloaked in shadow and malevolence. It was Dark Kevin. "No," Kevin whispered. His heart sank as he beheld the sinister figure before him, his mind reeling with shock. How could this be? How could Dark Kevin be the head of the Pinnacle? "Hello, brother," Dark Kevin offered with a smirk. "I'm sure you have many questions, and lucky for you, I'm going to keep you alive just long enough to answer them." After the Pinnacle invaded, Kevin was taken hostage on Apex Island, a floating mega-fortress hovering high above the city of Chicago. Kevin was tortured and fitted with a special metal helmet that blocked him from using his levels. But then he learned the terrifying truth, that the head of the Pinnacle was the twisted mirror image of himself, Dark Kevin. As Kevin stared in shock at his alter ego Dark Kevin, a whirlwind of confusion swept through his mind. How could this be possible? Dark Kevin, or DK as he liked to call himself, was a creation of his own making, born from the depths of his own psyche during Kevin's time in the lower realm. Yet here DK stood, a living embodiment of all the darkness and despair that lurked within Kevin's soul. "How?" Kevin asked simply. "How what?" DK replied. "How are you the head of the Pinnacle?" Kevin asked, his mind and body badly bruised from the torture he had endured only moments earlier. "Why do you seem so shocked?" DK replied. "You created your empire and now I have mine." But as Kevin struggled to make sense of the situation, a nagging thought tugged at the edges of his consciousness. The timeline didn't make sense. Dark Kevin had only come into existence relatively recently during Kevin's journey through the lower realm. How could he be the force that had been working against him all this time? "But the Pinnacle has been building for centuries," Kevin pushed back. "You and I have only existed for a fragment of that time." "I told you, Kevin," DK offered with a wry grin. "I'm going to answer all of your questions, and then I'm going to kill you." With a heavy heart, Kevin braced himself for Dark Kevin's explanation, steeling himself for the revelations that were sure to come. And as Dark Kevin began to speak, his voice dripping with malice, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. "You're right," DK noted. "The Pinnacle has been around for much longer than you and I, a dark force lurking in the shadows, biding its time, amassing power and resources, all with one singular purpose: domination. World domination. Hundreds of years in the making, a legacy steeped in carefully practiced restraint and long-term ambition. Kevin remained on his knees, his body and brain badly bruised and beaten, as DK continued. But the Pinnacle wasn't merely an organization, it was a living entity. It was people, a group of people, evolving, adapting, and growing stronger with each passing century. Men and women came and went, but the essence of the Pinnacle remained, the idea behind the organization, an insidious presence weaving its tendrils through the fabric of history. The name may not have been spoken, but the Pinnacle had their hands in every great war throughout history. Kevin tried to pull himself up off the ground, but he didn't have the strength after enduring the electrical ravages of the helmet that had been lashed onto his head. "After you created me, I felt lost," DK explained further. "You had abandoned me, tried to kill me. I needed a different path. When I first crossed paths with the Pinnacle, I was but a pawn in their grand design, a reckless soul drawn to their dark power. But I wanted more. I realized that this organization could be the vessel to lead me to my ultimate goal. But I couldn't be there just being a pawn. I had to become a king, the head of the chessboard. And soon I found a way." DK began to circle Kevin, who remained on the ground. The Pinnacle had its hierarchy, a council of elders who wielded authority with iron fists. But the Pinnacle had a rule, a twisted code of conduct that fueled its internal strife. The strong could rise. Knowing their simple code, I emerged from the shadows, a new dark figure shrouded in mystery but determined to climb. I had no lineage, no ancient bloodline to boast of, no previous connection to the Pinnacle, but I possessed something far more potent: hunger. I was so hungry to climb, so ravenous to get my revenge on the man who had created me, Kevin Williams. DK kicked Kevin in the side, sending him reeling back to the ground in pain. "I challenged the council one by one in the arena of combat," DK remembered. "It was a spectacle unlike any other, blood and steel colliding amid cheers and jeers from the assembled throngs of minions. I fought with ferocity, each battle a testament to my absolute resolve, and soon I saw results. The council members fell before me, their once proud stature reduced to mere remnants of a bygone era. I climbed the ranks, leaving a trail of broken bodies in my wake, until finally I stood face to face with the head of the Pinnacle, a chance to battle them for dominance in the arena. Our duel was legendary, a clash of titans that shook the constructs of Apex Island. We fought not just for supremacy, but for the very soul of the Pinnacle itself. And in the end, it was I who emerged victorious, my day dagger bathed in the blood of my predecessor." DK removed his day dagger to show Kevin. "I became the new leader of the Pinnacle, the architect of its future and the harbinger of doom for the Foundation," DK boasted. "And so, as I stand before you now, the Master of Shadows, remember this. In a world ruled by darkness, only the strongest will survive. And I, Dark Kevin, am the epitome of that blackened strength." "Congratulations," Kevin offered, half mocking. "You're the head of the Pinnacle. You stand for everything that's wrong in the world. I hope you're proud." DK got down on his knees in order to lock eyes with Kevin. "You don't get it, do you? The only reason I did any of this was for you. I saw taking over the Pinnacle as the only way to squash you, Kevin," DK declared, his eyes gleaming with a dark intensity. "My ultimate goal isn't to take over the world, it's to take over your world. I watched your happiness from behind a mirror I couldn't escape, always wondering what happened when the reflection ended. I want it all, and now I have the power to finally take it. To take over what you have, what you had, what you will have. your power, your life, your Lily. They'll all become mine now. My power, my life, my Lily. Kevin's blood boiled as Dark Kevin revealed the extent of his ambitions. Dark Kevin was not just a reflection of his own darkness. He was a twisted, malevolent force, hell-bent on destroying everything that Kevin held dear. No, Kevin replied simply. No, DK repeated. No what? I won't let you, Kevin responded. DK shook his head in disbelief. Won't let me what? Do you think that we're still fighting each other? We're not. I've won. I've already defeated you, and now I'm going to take what's mine. I'm going to find Lily. I'm going to find the twins. I'm going to take over your life. I'm going to become the one and only Kevin Williams. And do you know what the worst part is? Lily won't even know the difference. Kevin's heart sank at the realization of the danger his loved ones faced. He knew that Dark Kevin was capable of unspeakable acts, and the thought of him insinuating himself into Lily and the twins' lives filled him with a sense of dread. You'll never be able to fool Lily, Kevin countered, his voice filled with defiance. She'll see right through you. But Dark Kevin only laughed. It's so moving to see how much you care about her, DK noted. It makes me genuinely curious. I've never felt that way about anyone before. I want to test it. I want to see how much you really love this woman. With all my heart, Kevin replied simply. Then prove it. DK responded as he removed a simple remote from his pocket. What is that? Kevin asked. The kill switch to your helmet, DK explained. I'll make you a deal, a test if you will. Press this button and fry your own brains and I won't search for Lily. Press this button and turn your skull into mush and I'll leave her and the twins alone forever. What do you say? As Dark Kevin issued his chilling ultimatum, Kevin remained frozen on his knees, his mind reeling. The weight of DK's words hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the impossible choice that lay before him. Save Lily and the twins from further misery, Dark Kevin taunted. All you have to do is kill yourself. Press this button, and it will all be over. Kevin's thumb hovered over the control, the weight of the decision bearing down upon him like a crushing weight. He knew that if he pressed that button, it would mean the end of his life, but DK had promised to leave Lily and the twins in peace if he did. Kevin debated, his hand moving closer and closer to the button. Press it, DK shouted. Press the button. The Pinnacle warriors in the audience began to chant once again. Obey! 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 Press the button! DK screamed. Press it! Kevin was taken hostage on Apex Island, Pinnacle's floating megafortress hovering high above Chicago. After being tortured and fitted with a special metal helmet that removed his levels, Kevin finally came face to face with the mysterious head of the Pinnacle, Dark Kevin. Dark Kevin offered Kevin a sinister choice: fry his own brain using the restrictive helmet he was wearing, or Lily would suffer the consequences. All you have to do is fry your own brains, DK repeated as he lowered the control panel in front of Kevin. Kill yourself and I'll go easy on our sweet Lily and the twins. Kevin was tired. He didn't have his levels. He had been beaten badly and his mind had been shocked with hundreds of volts of electricity. Press the button, DK continued, and it will all be over. But if you don't, I'll make Lily pay for your arrogance. Kevin raised his hand toward the control panel. His thumb hovered over the red button, the weight of the decision bearing down upon him like a crushing mountain of rock. Press it, DK shouted. Press it! Kevin knew that if he pressed that button, it would mean the end of everything he held dear: his life, his love, his very soul. But as he stared into DK's twisted grin, a flicker of defiance sparked within him. "No," Kevin whispered. "No," DK repeated. "I don't believe you," Kevin admitted. "I don't believe that you'll go easy on Lily if I decide to fry my own brains."
"You're dooming her. You're dooming Lily and the twins," DK laughed haughtily.
"No," Kevin whispered once again, firmer than before. "You're not going to touch Lily. You won't lay a hand on her or my twins." DK shook his head in building disbelief.
"And who's going to stop me?"
Kevin focused his mind. He gathered all of his remaining strength and pulled himself up off the ground. He stood face to face with DK. "I am." Apex Island was suddenly shaken by a massive blast. 1,000 helicopters suddenly filled the sky, their rotors slicing through the air as they descended upon Apex Island in a relentless onslaught. Dropping bombs with precision, they unleashed a barrage of destruction upon the island, sending shockwaves reverberating through the very ground beneath Kevin's feet. In the chaos, DK dropped the control panel to Kevin's helmet. The bombardments continued.
"What is this?"
DK exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief.
"What's happening?"
Kevin's eyes went wide as he suddenly realized. "It's a counterattack! Payback, you monster!" Kevin shouted in defiance. Led by Brett Stewart, and he brought everyone. The Myriads, Reaper Squad, Radiance, everyone. They're all here and they're gunning for you. Kevin's heart soared at the realization of what was happening. Brett Stewart, his ally and friend, had rallied the forces of good, fairness, and justice to launch a daring assault against the Pinnacle stronghold. Rockets streaked across the sky and bombs rained down upon Apex Island. DK shouted commands to his men.
"Get our Pinnacle ships in the air. Shoot down these helicopters. Shoot them down. Shoot them."
Pinnacle soldiers scattered to get to their ships and launched countermeasures. As chaos engulfed Apex Island in the wake of the counterattack, Kevin seized the opportunity to make his escape, but before he fled, he turned to his friend Brett for last words. "You must go, Kevin. The Foundation is in danger and you are the only one who can save it," Brett asserted. Kevin knew that Brett Stewart, the Myriad leader who had arrived in the nick of time to save Kevin from death, was correct. But Kevin also knew that leaving behind his longtime ally was almost certain to lead to Brett's death. Though the Myriads were valiant, they were far outnumbered and undersourced when doing battle on the Pinnacle's own domain, Apex Island. And it was unsaid that what Brett was doing was a suicide mission and also the ultimate sacrifice. His life would surely be taken in order to create a diversion for Kevin's escape. The two friends shook hands wordlessly as Kevin looked meaningfully at his compatriot for probably the last time. With determination burning in his heart, Kevin sprinted for the arena's exit, his chained hands clanging together as he raced through the labyrinthian corridors inside the circular fortress. DK called out,
"Stop him! Stop Kevin Williams!"
Dozens of Pinnacle soldiers raced down the hall in pursuit of Kevin. Kevin's level 9 abilities were still shielded by the helmet he was wearing, rendering him powerless in the face of danger. But even as he struggled against the chains that bound him, Kevin refused to give up hope. He would find a way to break free, to reclaim his freedom and his levels, and save Lily and the twins from DK's evil plans. Kevin darted around corners and dodged incoming blasts, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Halt!" the Pinnacle guard shouted.
"Obey! Obey! Obey!"
Kevin didn't listen. He just continued to run as the counterattack rocked Apex Island nonstop. Kevin reached the edge of the floating island and screeched to a halt. He was so high up, a few thousand feet in the air, and there was nowhere left for him to run. "On your knees!" the Pinnacle soldiers shouted as they closed in on Kevin. Kevin turned back and forth between the swiftly approaching Pinnacle warriors and the massive cliff waiting right in front of him. His hands were still chained. The helmet was still limiting his abilities. Kevin was trapped. But just as the Pinnacle guards were about to reach Kevin, a deafening explosion rocked the island, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Kevin's eyes widened in terror as he was blasted off Apex Island by the force of the blast, hurtling through the atmosphere with nothing but the void of space to cushion his fall. As he tumbled through the darkness, his mind reeling with disbelief, Kevin fought to maintain his composure. He couldn't afford to panic, not now when his survival depended on it. With a fierce determination burning in his heart, Kevin steadied himself and reached out into the void, searching for a way to regain control. He knew that his journey was far from over, that the true battle still lay ahead. As he hurtled through the abyss, Kevin vowed never to give up, to keep fighting until his last moment of life. For as long as he drew breath, he would never stop fighting to reclaim his destiny and save those he loved from the darkness that threatened to consume them all. As Kevin plummeted through the clouds, a sense of despair threatened to overwhelm him. But just as all hope seemed lost, a miraculous turn of events unfolded. The helmet that had once imprisoned his mind slipped off his head, tumbling out of view toward the city below. The helmet, Kevin thought. I'm free! Almost instantly, Kevin felt his levels returning, his strength and level 9 abilities flooding back to him with newfound vigor. Kevin focused his mind, channeling his strength to break the chains that bound him. With a mighty roar, he shattered the shackles, his hands now free but his descent still unimpeded. Great, Kevin thought. I'm not handcuffed anymore, but I'm still falling fast. Kevin was rocketing toward the city. He didn't have a parachute. He didn't have anything that could brace his fall. But at that moment, he realized he did have something. My telekinetic powers, Kevin thought. When he had leveled up, one of his newfound abilities had been the power to move things with his mind. He had only used the power a handful of times and was still unsure of exactly how far he could push the powers, but in that moment he was willing to try anything. In a moment of clarity, Kevin summoned all his concentration, tapping into a latent power that he had barely used. With a focused effort, he extended his telekinetic abilities, pushing against the air around him. And then, in a rush of exhilaration, Kevin felt himself slowing down. He was doing it. He was falling slower and slower until he wasn't falling at all. Kevin was suspended in the air, holding himself in place with his mind. But he wasn't done yet. Kevin focused to an even greater degree, and in a moment of pure exhilaration, he pushed upward, his body defying gravity as he ascended into the heavens. He was flying, truly flying. It was a sensation unlike any he had ever experienced, a rush of freedom and power that filled him with a humbling sense of awe. As he marveled at his newfound abilities, Kevin suddenly realized the truth. This must be how all the Pinnacle soldiers had been flying too. DK, Kevin realized, must have leveled up when Kevin leveled up and taught the Pinnacle soldiers to fly, using their own telekinetic abilities that DK had imparted to them. But even as he soared through the cosmos, Kevin knew that his journey was far from over. The battle against Dark Kevin and the Pinnacle still raged on, and he was their only hope for victory. But before he returned to the battle, there was somewhere he needed to go first. As Kevin soared through the skies, propelled by his newfound telekinetic abilities, he felt a surge of relief wash over him as he approached the hotel where Lily was resting after her false labor episode. Landing on her balcony with a gentle grace, he walked inside and stood by her side. "Are you okay?" Kevin asked, his voice filled with worry as he gazed down at Lily, her face pale and drawn from the ordeal she had endured. Lily met his gaze with a determined glint in her eyes, her resolve unshakable despite the danger that surrounded them. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice steady and unwavering. "I need to get you out of here," Kevin explained. "The Pinnacle is crawling all over the city. I need to fight them back, but I need to get you somewhere safe first. No, Lily replied. No? Kevin repeated curiously. Lily took Kevin's hand. We're in this together. Me, you, and the twins. If you're staying to fight, then I'm staying to fight too. A swell of emotion surged within Kevin as he looked upon his wife, her bravery and strength filling him with a sense of awe and admiration. In that moment, he realized just how deeply he loved her. With a sense of reverence, Kevin reached out and took Lily's hand in his own, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. I couldn't imagine loving you any more than I do at this moment, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. And as they stood together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, Kevin knew that they would overcome any obstacle as long as they stood united. For as long as they drew breath, they would fight side by side, ready to reclaim their destiny and emerge victorious against the darkness that threatened to consume them all.